For a group of college girls, running into a guy who has a vaguely flirty history with one of their friends was a time-honored tradition. A little teasing, a bit of playful prodding to see him get flustered and shy. It was always a fun, harmless game. So when Sienna Chun and Josie Zhou saw Leo Wallace, that's exactly what they had in mind. They just never expected every single playful jab they threw at him to boomerang back and smack their best friend right in the face. Lily Liu felt like she was about to die of social anxiety. Everything you two are saying are things that I did. Leo, for his part, didn't seem to think anything of it. He just answered their questions with frank honesty. We didn't get dinner. She said it wasn't a convenient time. It was the simple truth, but to Josie and Sienna, it was a hilarious misunderstanding. They exchanged a look, a knowing, teasing smile spreading across their faces. Oh, so our Lily turned you down, huh? It made perfect sense. Their Lily was the undisputed girl of the humanities department, a total knockout. Even if this guy was kind of cute, did he really think he could just ask her out whenever he wanted? Leo paused, a little confused, before explaining, oh no, it was because before he could finish, Lily, looking like she was about to have a heart attack, cut him off in a flustered panic. Don't say it. It's not important. It's not important at all. The calm, collected girl of the freshman class, a picture of quiet grace, had completely lost her composure. Leo came back to the present and smiled. No, a business partner, I guess. We were just talking about a little deal. That one sentence made all three girls, including Lily, stop and stare. A business partner? A deal? The girls all came from business families, and they couldn't help but look Leo up and down again. Josie was intrigued. You're a freshman, maybe a sophomore, and you're already doing business deals at your age. Her tone was laced with disbelief. Leo just chuckled, unfazed by her skepticism. College students can be entrepreneurs too. Good to get some early experience. To Sienna and Josie, his modest, polite answer sounded more like a cover for a lack of confidence. It only reinforced their belief that he was just showing off for Lily. Sienna's lips curved into a slight smirk. Is that so? You sound pretty capable then. So, how did this deal of yours go? Was it a big one? She put a deliberate emphasis on the word deal. It wasn't exactly mockery, but it was dripping with playful condescension. In their world, a deal involved at minimum hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. For this guy, to casually brag like this just made him seem insecure and out of his depth. Leo smiled at that. Thinking about the price he'd just settled on with David Chung, his good mood only improved. Facing the group of pretty girls, he answered with a half-joking truth. It went well. Should be. Somewhere in the 8 or 9-figure range, I guess. The statement was delivered with utter nonchalance, and it made all three of them, Lily, Sienna, and Josie, freeze on the spot. 8 or 9 figures. Their conversation didn't last long. Soon after, Leo said his goodbyes and prepared to leave. Lily offered to walk him to the door of the cafe. As they parted, the it girl of the humanities department looked at the young man before her, her expression tinged with guilt as she looked down and whispered, I'm sorry. That apology was for two things. First, for a friend's teasing attitude just now. And second, for what had happened at the Dynasty Lounge all those months ago. Even though half a year had passed, the memory was still crystal clear, burned into her mind. It had to be. For Lily Liu, who had been pampered and protected her entire life like a flower in a greenhouse, she had never experienced anything like it. That night in the karaoke room, the sudden explosion of brutal, bloody violence had been a visceral shock to her system. In a situation like that, where most people would have been paralyzed by fear, unable to even speak through their tears, he had stepped forward. In a moment of extreme danger, a moment of pure terror, that handsome, composed young man had stood up without hesitation. He had faced those thugs head-on. How could that not leave a deep, lasting impression? And how could she not feel a profound sense of shame and guilt because of it? Looking at Lily, Leo just smiled. It's fine. It's all in the past. It wasn't your fault. We're still friends. He really didn't hold any grudges against her. She was a good kid, a hell of a lot better than someone like Sarah Lynn. Anyway, while she wasn't suited to be his cooking partner, there was no problem with them being ordinary friends. Lily looked up, stunned. A hint of light, a glimmer of hope, returned to her eyes. Still friends. Leo smiled. Of course. He flagged down a cab. Waving goodbye to the girl he'd unexpectedly run into today, he got in the car and was gone. Lily stood there, watching the taxi disappear into the distance, lost in a daze. Just then, Sienna and Josie came out of the cafe to join her. Josie glanced in the direction the cab had gone. He's gone. Lily nodded with a soft Josie couldn't help but roll her eyes. I don't think he's all that. Way too unreliable. He doesn't even think before he lies, does he? An 8 or 9-figure deal. Who's going to believe that? Lily continued to stare into the distance, then suddenly spoke in a quiet voice. I do. It sounded completely absurd, utterly impossible. But when she remembered that night at the Dynasty Lounge, she also remembered how that same young man had done something that seemed just as impossible. A boy like that. Maybe he was someone who could make miracles happen. Her two friends were completely stunned. Josie looked at Lily like she'd grown a second head. Lily, are you running a fever or something? You actually believe that? Sienna, however, looked like she'd just had an epiphany and couldn't help but laugh. Looks like someone's got a case of love brain. You don't actually like a guy who just makes up stories, do you? It was meant as a joke. But Lily turned to them and nodded seriously. I do. I like him. She paused, her mind flashing back to that night. To the calm, elegant girl who had stood up for him without a moment's hesitation. Her expression dimmed slightly. But I can't compete with her, and I'm not good enough for him. Still pushing for 3 chapters tonight. Don't forget to send Power Stones and reviews. Once in the taxi, Leo gave the driver their meeting point and then leaned back, closing his eyes to rest. He mentally replayed the meeting he'd just had, doing a quick analysis. $300,000 secured. With that kind of cash on hand, his options for what to do next expanded significantly. The subsequent partnership with David Chung wasn't urgent. He could wait until they finalized the 8% stake in the company. There was no rush to dive deeper into collaboration just yet. For now, he could start putting the browser-based game on his schedule. First, he needed to find a development team. Second, he had to start talking to the IP department at Scrollverse. The rights to battle through the heavens. He had to have them. Now that he thought about it, he should probably register a company first. His mind was racing when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID. Bertha Sue. A smile touched his lips as he answered. Hello. His girlfriend's familiar, coolly pleasant voice came through the line. We're about to head out. Are you done on your end? Yeah, Leo said. Just finished. I'm on my way now. Fresh off closing such a big deal, he was in a great mood and decided to tease her. What? Couldn't stand being without me for a few hours. There was a pause on the other end, then Claire's nonchalant reply. Not at all. I was actually enjoying the peace and quiet. I was hoping you'd be late. So she wanted to trade barbs. Leo smirked and fired back. All right then. I'll just tell the driver to take his time. Let you really feel the lonely, aching pain of missing me. Her voice remained perfectly casual. Fine by me. It's just a shame I went to all the trouble of dressing up today. Too bad someone won't be the first to see it. Try not to regret it. Leo laughed out loud. Don't worry, I won't. Is there any version of Bertha Sue that I haven't seen? A man reborn, the boyfriend of the great Claire Sterling. Was he really going to be bluffed by a little line like that? Not a chance. The next second, he heard a commotion on the other end of the line. It sounded like the girls from room 205 had met up with his roommates. Then he heard Quinn lose a astonished shriek. Whoa, Claire, you look amazing today. You're even wearing black stockings. Black stockings. The trigger words hit him instantly. His hand, holding the phone, trembled slightly. Claire's cool, composed voice came through the line. Gotta go. Tell your driver to take it slow. Bye-bye. On his end, Leo remained perfectly calm. Yeah, bye. He hung up. The next second, he snapped his phone shut and leaned forward urgently. Driver, step on it. I've got an emergency. Half an hour later, he arrived. The taxi pulled up near a downtown subway station entrance. Leo paid and got out, walking a few steps toward the station before looking up and seeing his and Claire's friends emerging from the exit. At the same time, the groups from room 205 and 520 spotted him. Marco and the others waved enthusiastically. Leo, over here, over here. Claire was already walking toward him. When she reached him, she raised an eyebrow at her boyfriend. How'd the business deal go? Leo grinned. Great. Everything went smoothly. A smile graced Claire's face as well. Good. Looks like my blessing worked. As she spoke, she stood on her toes, stepped forward, and planted another kiss on his lips. Here's a buff renewal. Leo, recovering from the surprise kiss, nodded sagely. Perfectly reasonable. The rest of their friends were just walking up, happy and laughing, when they were hit point blank with this public display of affection. Everyone. It felt like a stampede of 1,000 angry alpacas was rampaging through their hearts. The indignation was overwhelming. Holy shit. Do these two just start making out now without any warning, regardless of where they are? Nearby, Molly Tang glanced at her own boyfriend, not to be outdone. We should do that too. Let's get some buffs. Leon's face split into a huge grin. He bent down slightly, allowing his girlfriend to jump up and kiss him on the lips. Reasonable. The others. Great. Now reasonable is contagious. God damn it. All couples deserve to die. With everyone gathered, they still had plenty of time before dinner. Molly, the birthday girl, excitedly suggested they go check out the nearby aquarium. No one had any objections, and they all happily agreed. As the group walked toward the aquarium, Leo remembered something important. He subconsciously glanced down at his girlfriend's legs. They were long, pale, smooth, and supple. Leo, wait a minute. Where are my black stockings? A storm was raging in his heart, but his face remained a mask of nonchalance. He looked again, just to be sure he wasn't imagining things. And then again, Claire glanced at him coolly. Stop looking. I'm not wearing any. Quinn lied to you. Leo. He continued to feign indifference. Oh, it's fine. I was never really interested in that kind of vulgar stuff anyway. At the same time, he shot a death glare at Quinn, who was laughing and joking with Marco a short distance away. He ground his teeth in frustration. Fine. I hope you, Miss Lou, only ever date men on Marco's level for the rest of your life. They had to buy tickets to get into the aquarium. 8 college students for guys and 4 girls from 2 dorm rooms, full of youthful energy. As they walked in, laughing and talking, they naturally drew the attention of other visitors. The girls from room 205, in particular, elicited a wave of hushed whispers and admiring sighs. Wow, a beauty, a huge beauty, a top-tier beauty. Cute, intellectual, mature, and sultry, and coolly stunning. All different types. When the guys walked in, they also drew some looks, but the level of admiration dropped significantly. Oh, a handsome guy, a normal human, a withdrawn human, and a gorilla-type human. Just then, Leon and Molly walked in holding hands affectionately. Leon, true to form, pulled 2 homemade date cakes from his pocket and handed them to his girlfriend. The onlookers subconsciously revised their assessment. A gorilla-type human taking care of his owner. 3rd chapter. Remember to send power stones and gifts. This was Leo's first time at the local aquarium. The experience was pretty similar to the wildlife exhibit at Beacon Hill Park back home, just with a much wider variety of fish. Viewing them through the panoramic glass windows was a real eye-opener. The 2 groups of friends walked and talked. The girls would periodically gasp in amazement. Wow, so pretty. Wow, this one's so cute. It started out normal enough, but soon the tone started to shift. Wow, this one looks delicious. This one too. At some point, the girls had gathered in front of a glass tank, analyzing the beautiful little fish swimming inside, their eyes sparkling. This one looks really meaty. It would probably be good braised or steamed. Their conversation completely baffled some of the other aquarium visitors who passed by. Excuse me, are these young ladies picking out their dinner at a seafood buffet? The guys from room 520 had long since distanced themselves. Who were those girls? Never seen them before in our lives. We definitely didn't come here together. The most popular exhibit at the aquarium was the beluga whale. In front of a massive floor-to-ceiling viewing window, a chubby, round-headed beluga swam with graceful ease. A few kids were pressed against the glass, waving excitedly at the whale inside. The beluga slowly swam over. 1 second it was adorably plump. The next it lunged forward, slamming against the glass and widening its eyes in a threatening display right in front of the children. God! The kids burst into tears and ran wailing to their mothers. The whale, proud of its successful prank, smugly swam away. When the group from room 205 and 520 approached, the whale decided to try its trick again. This time, it managed to startle Molly, who yelped and threw herself into her boyfriend's arms. Whoa, that was scary. Leon held his girlfriend tight, his voice full of righteous indignation. It's okay, don't be scared. Have a date cake to calm your nerves. Just then, Leo and Claire walked up to the viewing window. The beluga, still high on its pranking success, spotted new targets and went for another round. It spun around in the water and slammed against the glass again, making a terrifying face at Claire. Claire's expression remained placid. She looked up and met the whale's gaze coolly. The whale froze. Why isn't this human scared of me? It instinctively tried to glare back at the girl by the window. Their eyes met. A jolt went through the whale. Its eyes instantly cleared. The next second, it broke into a goofy, fawning smile and then turned and swam away as fast as it could. Their friends watched this, absolutely dumbfounded. Holy shit, Bertha is a true legend. She scared the beluga away. The group continued onward, walking and laughing. Leo and Claire lagged behind, holding hands and chatting. Claire asked about her boyfriend's meeting at the cafe earlier that afternoon. In his good mood, Leo joked, basically, I closed a deal worth a few $100 million. Then, as if just remembering, he added, "Oh, by the way, I ran into Lily Lou at the cafe. We talked for a bit. Ran into Lily Lou? And closed a deal worth a few $100 million. The keywords clicked together in her mind. Instantly, Claire's eyes narrowed, her gaze locking on her boyfriend. A palpable killing intent filled the air. Up ahead, Marco and the others felt a sudden chill and looked around in confusion. Is the air conditioning in this place set to Arctic blast? It took Leo a moment to realize what had happened. He quickly and very nervously explained, No, the business deal was with someone else. I just happened to run into Lily Lou by chance. We chatted for a couple of minutes, and then she left. He then proceeded to give a full, unvarnished account of his encounter with the humanities girl, leaving out no detail. He made sure not to miss a single word. His survival instinct was at maximum. Finally, the murderous aura around his girlfriend dissipated, and she nodded slightly. Then, with a calm and casual air, she remarked, You don't have to tell me all this. I'm not the jealous type. Leo. Right, of course. Just then, Claire mentally canceled her call to Mr. Joe to have him take care of the situation. After a moment's thought, she offered a coolly objective assessment. She's actually a pretty good person. What happened to the karaoke lounge wasn't her fault. Leo nodded in agreement. Yeah, she's just a student. Anyone would have been scared in that situation. He paused, then looked at his girlfriend and smiled. You were the exception, though. You didn't seem scared at all back then. Claire raised an eyebrow. Of course I wasn't. Even now, just thinking about that thug Gavin Zhang swinging at her boyfriend's head made her blood boil. The bottle she'd smashed over his head felt far too light. She should have let Mr. Joe handle it, or maybe asked the waiter for 2 more cases of beer and smashed every single one. Watching his girlfriend's expression shift as she seemed to be calculating something, Leo's gaze softened. He spoke quietly. You should have been scared. After all, it was incredibly dangerous. So don't be so reckless in the future. Even though 6 months had passed and everything had turned out fine, the memory still made his heart pound. Not for himself, but for her. He thought about what might have happened if Mr. Joe hadn't arrived in time. The girl who had stepped forward to protect him might have truly become prey for Gavin Zhang and his men, and he couldn't bear to imagine what horror she would have suffered. It was precisely because of that fear that he had decided to train with Mr. Joe, to make himself stronger, strong enough to protect the girl in front of him, to ensure she would never be harmed again. Sensing the sincerity in her boyfriend's heart, Claire looked up at Leo and smiled faintly. I know. She paused, meeting his gaze, and spoke again, her voice calm and serious. But if it ever happens again, I'll do the same thing. Leo was taken aback, then gave a wry, helpless smile. Why are you so stubborn? But Claire didn't flinch, looking directly into his eyes, her own gaze clear and bright. It's not stubbornness. It's because I don't want to regret it a second time. The encounters between people are always a tapestry of chance and coincidence. That's what gives a story its suspense, its heart-wrenching tension. For instance, at this moment, Leo had no idea what Claire truly meant by her words. He subconsciously assumed her regret was about the 2 dangerous incidents involving Gavin Zhang and his thugs. But only Claire knew the truth. For her, the greatest regret, the deepest source of sorrow, had occurred on a rainy night at a crossroads in their previous life. Though neither knew what the other was thinking, they could still feel the depth of each other's emotions. A warmth spread through their chests. Leo wrapped his arm around his girlfriend's waist, leaned in, and gently kissed her on the lips. She rose on her toes to meet his kiss, returning it with a tenderness that was both gentle and firm. When their lips parted, the young couple looked at each other and smiled, until they heard Marco's heartbroken, grief-stricken voice from nearby. You two, can you please be mindful of your surroundings? They turned to see their friends from both dorms staring at them, their faces etched with the pain of having been force-fed another round of PDA. The damage was clearly severe. Only Molly, the birthday girl, seemed unfazed. She tugged on her boyfriend's arm, ready for a challenge. Let's do it too. The girl leaped into the air with agile grace and slammed her head right in her tall, burly boyfriend's chin. Thwack! Leon went down. A flurry of chaos erupted as their friends rushed over. Leon, are you okay? Call an ambulance. Call an ambulance. After the commotion, and with the aquarium tour complete, it was nearly dinner time. The group decided to head to the restaurant. They had reserved a table at a local spot downtown. They had initially considered a classier Western restaurant, but Molly, the birthday girl, felt those places were too stuffy and they wouldn't be able to relax. So, they opted for a more down-to-earth place. As long as the food was good, that's all that mattered. Atmosphere was key. Inside the restaurant's private room, everyone took their seats around a large circular table. They placed their orders and waited for the food to arrive. Their friends had all chipped in to buy Molly a beautiful pink, cartoon-themed cake. They turned off the lights, lit the candles. Quinn stood up, clapping a rhythm with her hands as she led everyone in song. "Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!" Everyone joined in, clapping along. In the dim light, Molly, wearing a birthday crown, closed her eyes and made a wish. Then she opened them and happily blew out the candles. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Whoa, yeah. Next came the presents. One by one, their friends gave their gifts to Molly. In a move that was both surprising and completely predictable, almost every single person had gotten her a romance novel. Quinn couldn't stop laughing. "Oh my God, Molly, after a few more birthdays, you'll be able to open your own romance bookstore with just your presents." It was a joke, but Molly's eyes lit up. "That's a great idea. Wow, that would be so cool." After everyone else had given their gifts, it was finally Leon's turn as her boyfriend. Marco was already teasing him. "Leon, don't tell me your gift is more date cakes." Dylan held up his ever-present notepad, on which he'd written, "Ha ha ha." It was true. The date cake guy was never without his date cakes. No matter the occasion, the first thing he did was offer one up. He had practically transcended into a conceptual being. But as Marco's joke got everyone laughing, Leon just smiled sheepishly. "No, I got something else." As he spoke, he carefully pulled a small, pink, square box from his jacket pocket. As everyone watched with wide eyes, Leon presented the small box to Molly and opened it. The group gasped in unison. Inside the box was a beautiful, delicate lady's bracelet. It had a gemstone charm in the shape of a four-leaf clover. Molly was stunned, her cute eyes wide with disbelief as she looked at her boyfriend. Leon just scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "Last time we were at the mall, I saw you looking at this one. I didn't have enough money then. So over winter break, I helped my family out and sold date cakes at a street stall. I made a little bit of money. With my allowance, it was just enough to buy the bracelet." The girls from room 205 were stunned. Quinn, after a moment, finally understood. "So that's why you were calling her less over the break, like you told us. You were working to buy her this bracelet?" Even the usually calm Jade couldn't help but adjust her glasses, a hint of emotion in her voice. "Isn't it like 10 degrees below zero on the streets there during winter break? You must have been freezing at a street stall." Leon just smiled his honest smile. "It's fine. I work out. I'm not afraid of the cold." He looked back at his girlfriend, his expression a mix of hope and nervousness. "So, do you like it?" Molly just stared at her boyfriend. Her eyes suddenly filled with tears. She threw her arms around Leon, hugging him tightly, and kissed him on the cheek again and again. "I love it." Marco was speechless. Holy shit. Since when did Leon get so smooth? He exchanged a look with Dylan. Suddenly, they both felt a wave of melancholy wash over them. "God, life here is so boring. Maybe we should just go back to Gotham." After the couple had their moment, Molly reluctantly let go of Leon. She eagerly took the bracelet and put it on her wrist, her face beaming with joy as she showed it off to her friends. Everyone looked on with genuine admiration and offered their sincere compliments. When it was Claire's turn to look, she glanced at the four-leaf clover bracelet on Molly's wrist and thought for a moment. "Speaking of bracelets, I just recently got a bangle myself." Before she could finish, Leo pulled her back, covering her mouth with his hand, looking both amused and exasperated. This girl, did she have to show off her bangle at every opportunity? Today was Molly's birthday, for God's sake. Show some restraint. Going for 3 chapters again tonight, requesting power stones and gifts. The birthday dinner was a huge success. In the private room of the small restaurant, the boys and girls from the 2 dorms laughed and talked, occasionally raising their glasses for a toast. Marco brought up Lily Lou's birthday party from last semester and couldn't help but sigh. "Man, Molly's birthday is so much more peaceful. That party for the humanities at Girl. The average person's heart couldn't handle that kind of excitement." Everyone had heard about the chaos that had erupted at the Dynasty Lounge. Hearing Marco's assessment, they all nodded in agreement. But then, Marco changed his tune, heaping praise on Claire for smashing a bottle over Gavin Zhang's head. "Damn, you guys weren't there to see it. That move from Bertha, it was fucking epic. You couldn't write or film a scene that cool. It was so immersive. I almost wished I could have taken that guy's place and let her hit me instead." Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's not entirely out of the question." She casually reached for a beer bottle from the case beside her. Marco immediately backtracked, his expression unchanged. "But then again, it's better to just watch that kind of thing. I was just kidding." The others groaned in disappointment. "You caved that easily? We were hoping for a show." Then, The girls turned their mischievous gazes to Dylan. How about you give it a try, Dylan? If you don't want to, just say something, Dylan. Everyone ate and drank their fill. The party didn't wind down until after 9 o'clock. After settling the bill, they stepped outside into the cool spring night air. Even though their dorm curfew was approaching, no one was in a hurry. They strolled along the sidewalk, looking for a cab. Slightly buzzed, with the cool spring breeze on their faces and the faint scent of flowers wafting from the trees along the road, it was a perfect night. The sky was clear, the moon bright, and the stars sparse. Walking with friends along the quiet, warm street was a feeling that relaxed the mind and soothed the soul. Molly, the birthday girl, had also had a fair bit to drink. Her face was flushed, and she was a little unsteady on her feet. Leon was carefully supporting her, but she suddenly broke free from his grasp. She skipped forward happily, cupped her hands around her mouth like a megaphone, and shouted into the soft, yellow glow of the streetlights. This was the best birthday ever. I want every birthday to be like this. Her voice echoed through the city streets. Her friends cheered and whistled in agreement. A few passers-by saw the scene and couldn't help but smile at the group of vibrant, youthful teenagers. It's good to be young. Though they were all joking around, everyone resonated with Molly's heartfelt declaration. It was true. At their age, you didn't need a lavish party. Just having a few good friends to eat, drink, and laugh with was more than enough. While waiting for a cab, they started counting out their birthdays to see who was next. After a bit of chaotic calculation, they figured it out. Leon was a year older than the rest, his birthday in August. Marco's was at the end of March, and Dylan's was in June. On the girls' side, Quinn's was in May, and Jade's was in July. Molly turned to Claire. Claire, I think yours is in May too, right? Claire smiled and nodded. Yeah, May 21st. This elicited a round of oohs and ahs from the group. Wow, that's a great day. It sounds like I love you. So meaningful. Jade adjusted her black-framed glasses and pointed out coolly, well, that saves a certain someone the trouble of planning for one less holiday. He got off easy. Everyone realized she was right. His girlfriend's birthday was the same day as a major romantic holiday. Leo had really lucked out. Then Leon turned to Leo, curious. Leo, when's your birthday again? I think it's in April, right? They had shared their birthdays once before when they were figuring out who was the oldest in room 520. Leo smiled and nodded. Yeah, I'm April 1st. At his words, Claire froze. She stared at her boyfriend, a flicker of something in her memory, something she couldn't quite grasp. The others were also taken aback for a second, then their eyes widened. April 1st? No way, April Fool's Day? The group burst into laughter. Having your birthday on April Fool's Day is hilarious. If you tell anyone it's your birthday, they'll just think you're joking. Leo, your birthday is kind of tragic, man. Marco was having a field day. Hey, so how did you spend your last birthday, Leo? Did no one believe you, so you just spent it all alone? It was a casual joke, but made Leo pause. My last birthday. For a moment, his thoughts were pulled back to a memory he had almost forgotten, buried deep inside. Fragments of images flashed through his mind. The memory came rushing back, sharp and cold, piercingly painful, but his expression remained calm as he smiled faintly. I think I was alone. I forget. His words were met with another round of good-natured laughter. Marco was still going. How can you forget your own birthday? Don't worry, you've got us and Bertha now. We have to throw you a big party this year. Right, Bertha? But his question was met with silence. Confused, Marco turned to look at Claire. Bertha? What he saw made his jaw drop. At that moment, Claire was staring at Leo in a complete daze. Her lips were slightly parted, trembling, and without anyone noticing, her eyes had suddenly turned red. Glistening tears welled up, overflowing and streaming down her coolly beautiful face. The others noticed and looked over. Seeing her, they nearly jumped out of their skin. Claire, wait, why are you crying? Chaos erupted as everyone rushed around her. Leo was even more shocked. He quickly moved to his girlfriend, wrapping his arms around her and gently wiping the tears from her cheeks. What's wrong? The girl in his arms didn't say a word. She just kept looking up at him, dazed, as the tears continued to flow, impossible to stop. Because she had suddenly remembered. April 1st. That was the day the accident had happened. The day that had completely changed her fate and his. That day, it turned out, it had been his birthday. On April 1st of his previous life, he was leaving the office after a meeting with his business partner. On his way out, he smiled and said goodbye to his partner and the other employees. His partner walked him to the elevator, arm slung chummily over his shoulder. We're having a team dinner tonight. We've had so many of these, and you always skip them. You should really come tonight. There are a lot of pretty girls in the company who've got their eyes on you. Who knows, maybe we can finally get you out of your single rut. He just smiled and politely declined, saying he had something to do. He went home and worked at his desk for a while. The sky outside grew dark, heavy clouds gathering, with flickers of lightning promising a storm. The apartment was quiet, so quiet it felt cold and desolate. He hadn't turned on the lights. He sat in the darkness for a while, lost in thought. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. It was a happy birthday text from a marketing company. He looked at the message, thought for a moment, and then stood up. He went to a small diner across the street from his apartment complex. He used to go there often and was on good terms with the owner. He greeted him with a smile, ordered 2 dishes instead of his usual one, and a couple of beers, then sat down at a corner table by himself. Outside, a clap of thunder rolled through the sky, followed by a torrential downpour. Inside, the owner brought him his food. He sat there alone, quietly admiring the storm outside while he ate and drank. This was how he celebrated his birthday. In the middle of his meal, his parents called from back home in Northwood. They wished him a happy birthday, asked about his health, told him not to work so hard, and then inevitably started nagging him about finding a girlfriend, about how he needed to focus on both his career and his family. Listening to their concerned voices, his heart warmed, and he smiled, agreeing with everything they said. He felt a pang of guilt for having neglected them while focusing on his work and promised to visit Northwood soon. But his parents just shook their heads over the phone, pretending not to care. "It's fine, we know you're busy. Don't make a special trip back. Your dad and I are doing great. Hey, with that time, you should find us a daughter-in-law first. Our family's heirloom jade bangle has been on your mom's wrist for decades, and she still hasn't had a chance to pass it down." The conversation circled back. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and just promised he would try his best to complete the mission this year. After hanging up, he unexpectedly received another text. It was from Annie Cakes. It was short and to the point. "Happy birthday, you big idiot." He smiled. A small warmth spread through his chest. The little sister he'd grown up with, once so close, always teasing and fighting. Now that they were adults, their busy lives had created a bit of distance. But every year, without fail, he would get this birthday text. He suddenly remembered that his brilliant, proud sister was also still single. It made sense. She was so successful that most men were too intimidated to even look at her. Even he, her older brother, wouldn't approve of just anyone for her. That girl. She was a vice president at some big company now. What was it called? Sterling Holdings, maybe. The name was famous in the business world, a titan of industry. For some reason, he felt like the name was connected to a memory, a face he couldn't quite place. Boom! A loud clap of thunder rattled the sky. The rain intensified. It pulled him from his thoughts. He shook his head, looked at the remaining food on his table, and got up to pay the bill. Then he walked out of the diner. He hurried home through the downpour. As he was about to cross the street, he saw a woman's figure a short distance away. She was wearing a long, black trench coat and nude, open-sided high heels. Her hand, holding a bright yellow umbrella, was slender and pale. Her figure was tall and elegant. Even from behind, in the dark, she exuded an extraordinary presence that caught the eye. He stared for a moment, momentarily captivated. Suddenly, the roar of an engine, like a beast, assaulted his ears. He whipped his head around. A heavy-duty truck was tearing through the rain, barreling toward them. And before he could even think, his body had already shot forward like an arrow. On April 1st of her previous life, she was leaving work for the day. As she walked through the open plan office, countless employees stood and bowed, their faces a mixture of respect and faint fear. She just gave a cool, perfunctory nod in acknowledgement. She walked with elegant, steady steps toward the elevators. As always, in the elevator, she received a call. A man's steady, respectful voice came through the line. It was her family's loyal driver and bodyguard, a former Special Forces operative. The man on the phone apologized respectfully, explaining that the former chairman of the group, her father, needed to go to the hospital for a checkup, so he wouldn't be able to pick her up from work tonight. She was unfazed, simply saying, "I understand," and hung up. The elevator descended. She put her phone away, her expression calm as she watched the floor numbers decrease on the display. Her heart was a still lake. She and her father hadn't had a private conversation in years. They rarely even saw or spoke to each other on holidays. She had once resented him for things in the past, but after so many years, the anger had faded. Still, the long-standing distance between them made her unsure of how to bridge the gap. Perhaps this was her destiny, to be unapproachable, to walk alone forever. When she stepped out of the company building, she realized a torrential downpour had started. She opened her umbrella and went to the roadside to hail a cab. Halfway home, the car broke down. The driver apologized profusely. She just calmly said it was fine, paid the fare, and stepped back out into the rain to find another cab. Holding the handle of her bright yellow umbrella, she walked through the downpour. As she crossed the street, her mind was still on a business project for the next day. She was slightly distracted, and so, when the roar of the heavy-duty truck suddenly grew louder, closer, she turned her head in alarm. Two massive white headlights cut through the rain, blinding her. It was too late to react, and in that instant, a force from behind shoved her forward. In her panic, she twisted her head back and saw his face, handsome, with a warm, familiar air. Then, a deafening crash, a blinding flash of light, and the rain washed over everything, obscuring the scene. On a balmy spring evening, on a quiet city street, the girl looked up at the young man's face, which was almost identical to the one she remembered from 16 years in the future, and she completely lost control. When a long-hidden truth was accidentally revealed, a massive wave of guilt, sorrow, and grief crashed over her. She suddenly started to cry, and she couldn't stop. April 1st. April 1st. She should have known. She should have known all along. None of their friends had ever seen Claire Sterling cry before. Leo had. But even on that first day of his new life, when she had thrown herself into his arms, she had only been on the verge of tears. And on Serenity Peak, she had still managed to keep her composure, her eyes only slightly red. But never like this. She was crying with an almost heartbreaking abandon, her slender body trembling in his arms, so hard she could barely breathe. Everyone was completely flustered, not knowing what to do. What's wrong with Claire? Why is she crying all of a sudden? Marco, did you say something wrong? Apologize to her now. Marco looked like he was about to have a stroke. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. I didn't even say anything. He whipped his head around to glare at Dylan. Was it you, Dylan? Say something. Dylan was so scared he almost performed a miracle and actually spoke. I. While their friends were in a panic, Leo didn't have time to worry about them. He just held his girlfriend tightly, whispering softly, it's okay, I'm here. Don't cry. But it wasn't working. Even with his warm, comforting words, the girl in his arms just looked at him, her eyes welling up again as tears streamed down her face. She didn't say anything. She just wrapped her arms around his neck, holding him so tight it felt like she was trying to merge her body with his. No one else knew why she was suddenly overcome with such immense guilt and sorrow. It was her fault. She should have known. In her past life, she had read all of his diaries. The boy who had meticulously documented his entire life, from major milestones to minor daily events, had never once mentioned his own birthday. Because for him, every birthday had been a lonely affair. So dull, so desolate, that he couldn't even bring himself to write about it. And not only that, even Leo's parents, who had come to treat her as their own daughter, and his sister, who had become her closest friend, had all tactfully and kindly chosen to hide the truth from her after the tragedy. They didn't want her to bear the weight of even greater guilt and grief. But in the end, a lifetime later, the truth had found her. April 1st was his birthday. And in a cruel April Fool's twist of fate, his birthday had also become the day he died. It shouldn't have been like that. That kind, gentle, handsome man should have been celebrating with friends or enjoying a quiet, peaceful day at home. It should have been a happy, warm, joyous occasion. But because of her, fate had taken a brutal, tragic turn. His life had been cut short on the very day that should have been his happiest. How absurd, and how crushingly sad. After some hesitation, and with Leo's quiet urging, their friends hailed a cab and left. Leo then flagged down another taxi for himself. He carefully helped his girlfriend into the back seat. The taxi pulled away, driving through the night. The girl in his arms still had her face buried in his chest. Her emotions seemed to have calmed slightly, but her slender body still trembled from the force of her sobs, making her seem all the more fragile and pitiable. Seeing that she was starting to calm down, Leo breathed a silent sigh of relief. He gently patted her back and asked softly, "Feeling any better? You really scared everyone back there. You almost scared Dylan into talking." He ended with a little joke, hoping to lift her spirits. But Claire just kept her head buried in his chest, not responding. Leo frowned, worried. He asked quietly, "What is it? Talk to me." Finally, she responded, shaking her head against his chest. "It's nothing." She finally lifted her head, revealing her red-rimmed, slightly swollen eyes. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck again, burying her face in his shoulder, her voice choked with emotion. "I just feel like I haven't been good enough to you." Leo froze. A giant question mark appeared over the head of the tiny cartoon version of him in his mind. What the hell? He blinked, and his eyes happened to catch the drivers in the rearview mirror. The driver was frowning, looking back at them with a gaze full of condemnation. Leo. Sir, please don't misunderstand. I'm not gaslighting her, I swear. The taxi arrived at its destination, stopping in front of the LNS house. As Leo paid the fare, the driver gave him one last look and said sternly, Son, you better be good to your wife. As men, wives are for cherishing, not for making them hurt for you. Though that sounded a little off, Leo nodded humbly, accepted the advice, and quickly shut the door. He guided his girlfriend through the front yard and into the house. He helped her to the sofa, then bustled around, getting a warm towel from the bathroom and a glass of hot water from the kitchen. He returned to the living room and gently wiped her face with the towel. Then he handed her the glass. Drink some water. Don't want you to get dehydrated from crying. It was another casual joke. Normally, it would have earned him a smile. But tonight, Claire just stared at him. It seemed that no matter what happened, he was always so calm, so composed. Always smiling, always kind and warm. He never gave anyone a reason to worry about him. But that also meant it was easy to forget that behind that gentle composure, he had borne so many heavy burdens himself. Claire's eyes reddened again. Leo panicked, grabbing the towel. Hey, what is it now? I was just joking. You're not dehydrated. You're not dehydrated. Women are made of water. You've got an endless supply of tears. This time, Claire pushed the towel away. She pushed him down onto the sofa, then swung her leg over, straddling him. Looking down at him, her eyes still red, she seemed to have made a decision. Her voice was firm and serious. Leo, yeah, I haven't been good enough to you. Huh. So, tonight, you can ask for anything you want. I'll do it. For Leo, this was a first. He had never seen his girlfriend be so accommodating. Lying on the sofa, looking up at the girl straddling him. Her eyes were still slightly swollen, but it only made her look more beautiful, more heart-wrenchingly lovely. His mind instantly flooded with 1,000 wild, forbidden scenarios that would get this story banned. Anything he wanted, he could have her try on every kind of stocking imaginable. Every kind of assistance would no longer be limited to just helping him out. Tonight, it would be a full-on, passionate assault. He could take it even further. To hell with the censors. It was time for some R-rated content. The 5, 6, and 7-star features from Mr. Chin's special collection. For a moment, his mind reeled, his blood boiling with excitement. But then he saw her swollen eyes again, felt her body still trembling slightly. And in an instant, all his heated thoughts cooled. This was also the first time he had ever seen her so sad, so heartbroken. The fantasies swirling in his head were undeniably tempting. But as her boyfriend, if he chose to take advantage of her at her most vulnerable moment, he would be a complete failure. He sat up, gently pulling his girlfriend into his arms and wiping the tear stains from her cheeks. He looked at her and smiled. You're being silly, you know that? Claire, sitting on his lap, just stared at him. Leo carefully brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead and said with a smile, Who says you haven't been good enough to me? If you're not good enough, then besides my parents, no one else in the world would even dare to try. Claire bit her lip, wanted to shake her head, her voice still laced with sadness. No, it's not enough. You don't understand. Leo smiled gently and turned her face back to his. It is enough. I don't need anyone else's opinion. I know better than anyone. The back door of our classroom before the final exams. When Sarah Lynn came looking for trouble, someone stood up for me. When other people looked down on me, someone stepped forward to help me study. Someone brought me breakfast every day. Someone watched the stars with me on the roof of the admin building. Someone wasn't embarrassed by my crappy little bike and sat on the back as we rode home together at night. He was just listing off examples, the same ones that had flashed through his mind that snowy day at the old stone chapel on Serenity Peak. Even when he had confessed his feelings, he hadn't shared all these details with her. But now he felt it was important for her to know that he remembered every single moment. He didn't just remember them. He cherished them, holding them in the warmest part of his heart. Claire had never expected him to list, in such vivid detail, all the things she had done for him. She was momentarily stunned. Looking at him, she bit her lip again, stubbornly trying to argue. Those things were nothing. But Leo cut her off with a gentle shake of his head. They were. They might have been nothing to other people, but to me, every single one was important. He met her gaze, his smile warm, but his voice was serious and sincere. I'm a pretty dense and passive person when it comes to feelings. Or maybe I just don't know what I really want. Or even if I do, I'm too afraid to go after it. And because of that, it's easy to miss out on things that are truly precious. Luckily, you were the one who walked 99 steps toward me. You could have stopped at any point, given up. But you kept walking until you were right in front of me. You got so close that the clueless, Oblivious Leo Wallace had nowhere left to retreat and finally found the courage and determination to look up and truly meet you. In 2 lifetimes, he had never spoken such romantic words. But at this moment, it didn't feel awkward at all because every word he said was the absolute truth from the bottom of his heart. It was also the first time Claire had ever heard him speak so openly, so honestly. Her beautiful face was filled with a dazed expression. She reached out and gently touched his cheek, whispering, "You remember all of that." Leo gently took her hand. "Of course." So, he looked up, his gaze serious. "Don't underestimate how much I appreciate everything you've done for me. And don't you dare underestimate your own love and dedication to me." As he finished speaking, his arm tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. And then, without hesitation, he kissed her. At first, she was lost in thought, but then she came back to herself and kissed him back. The kiss deepened, becoming passionate, intense, until the knot in her heart loosened, until they were both lost in the moment. The kiss was so intense, it even woke the round-headed parrot in its cage on the coat rack. It peered over at the sofa, confused. Then it quickly covered its head with its wings. My eyes. My eyes." Finally, their lips parted. Claire's face was flushed, and she was breathing heavily. She looked at her boyfriend, a faint smile playing on her lips. "My little idiot. You were quite the man today. A perfect opportunity, and you just let it go. No regrets." Leo looked righteously indignant. "Of course not. Am I Leo Hammer Wallace, the kind of person who takes advantage of a situation? Bertha Sue, you severely underestimate your boyfriend. It was just various stockings, various kinds of passionate assistance, and even some R-rated scenes that would get this story banned." He swallowed hard, trying to hide his disappointment. Then, he said with a straight face, "But then again, if you're still insistent, Bertha, I suppose I wouldn't be completely opposed." Before he could finish, the girl in front of him had gracefully stood up. "Not anymore. Your little speech worked quite well. Maybe next time." And with that, she walked lightly toward the bathroom to wash her face, leaving him on the sofa with nothing but the view of her enchanting, swaying figure. "Leo. Fine. No regrets. A man's word is his bond. I said no regrets, and I meant it. Okay, maybe just a little bit of regret." That night, after washing up, the young couple went to bed. Once under the covers, Claire instinctively snuggled up to Leo, wrapping her arms around him and burying her face in his chest. Such intimate, zero-distance contact was always bound to stir up certain thoughts in a young, hot-blooded man. He felt a familiar stirring. He was about to challenge the censors once again. But before he could even formulate a bold and passionate invitation for his girlfriend, he was surprised to find that she had already fallen fast asleep. Her breathing was even and steady, completely at peace in his arms. Leo paused, looking down at her sleeping face. Her beautiful features, her eyes still slightly swollen. A faint smile touched his lips. The lustful thoughts faded away. He gently brushed the hair from her forehead and carefully tucked the blanket around her. No more games. Bertha had been through enough today. She needed to rest. Looking at his girlfriend's beautiful sleeping face, a gentle smile formed on Leo's lips. He was perfectly content. This was nice, too. After all, who else had the privilege of admiring such a beautiful girl's sleeping face from this close? Most people probably don't even have girlfriends. Right now, they're probably just cuddling their phones, scrolling through videos, or reading novels, maybe even grinning like idiots. But thinking back on the night's events, remembering how she had cried uncontrollably, how nothing he said could console her, he still felt a pang of heartache. He didn't know where all that sadness and guilt had come from. But at least he had managed to comfort her. The words he had used to console her weren't just for show, either. They were from the heart. Even in his past life, a life she knew nothing about, even after the car accident on that rainy night, he had never once blamed her. In fact, in a way, he was almost grateful for that accident. His birthday had become the day he died, but it was also the catalyst for his rebirth. It had allowed him to travel back in time, to fix so many of his past regrets, to give his parents a better life, to become a better version of himself. And what's more, it was because of that accident that a strange twist of fate had brought him together with a girl currently sleeping in his arms, to truly love and be with each other. So, in a way, maybe that truck driver at the crossroads on that rainy night was his benefactor. No, wait, what benefactor? An accident is an accident. Negligence is negligence. If I'm going to thank anyone, it should be myself. Screw that truck driver. The next day, when Leo woke up, he rubbed his eyes and turned to find that the spot next to him was empty. He got out of bed and went downstairs. Before he even reached the living room, He saw Reasonable, the parrot, flapping its wings wildly in its cage, screeching in terror. Death! 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 The round-headed parrot saw him coming down the stairs and got even more agitated. Run! 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 Let's run together! Let's run together! Leo. A question mark slowly formed over his head. Confused, he reached the bottom of the stairs and looked around. He saw Claire emerging from the kitchen with 2 bowls of oatmeal. This morning, she was completely back to her old self. The slight swelling around her eyes was gone, without a trace. She was as stunningly beautiful as ever. Seeing Leo, she smiled. You're up. Wash up and come eat. He was stunned. He looked at his girlfriend, then at the 2 bowls of oatmeal in her hands, then back at her face. Leo swallowed hard. You cooked. She nodded happily, raising an eyebrow. You did a good job comforting me last night. Some rewards are off the table, but I still had to give you some compensation. So, as she spoke, she held up the bowls of oatmeal with an air of confidence. I made you breakfast myself. She looked at her boyfriend. Aren't you touched? A jolt went through him. He forced a smile that was uglier than a grimace. Touched? I'm so touched. Touch my ass. I'm too scared to even move. A tidal wave of despair washed over him. He wanted to die. It's one thing to deny me stockings and passionate assistance, but you can't repay my kindness with an assassination attempt, Bertha. In its cage, the parrot was gloating. Dead, dead, dead. This filled Leo with a murderous rage. He shot a malicious glare at the parrot, then turned to his girlfriend with a look of righteous indignation. We should share some with Reasonable. Good things should be shared. The parrot was shocked into silence, then started hopping around frantically. Not necessary. Not necessary. But Claire just laughed and gave her boyfriend a chiding look, as if he were an idiot. What are you thinking? I made this especially for you. How could he eat it? The parrot was so moved it was on the verge of tears, squawking loudly, Reasonable, reasonable, reasonable. Then Claire glanced its way. I'll make his later. Reasonable. Suddenly, he felt a little bit broken. In the end, after washing up, Leo sat down at the dining table with the grim determination of a man facing his execution. He stared at the bowl of oatmeal in front of him. It looked normal, but he knew it harbored a deadly secret. He looked at Claire, sitting across from him, waiting expectantly for him to try it. Leo took a deep breath. He tragically picked up a spoon, scooped up a mouthful, closed his eyes, and ate it. And then, his eyes shot open in surprise. It was soft, creamy, and sweet. The oats were perfectly cooked. Not only was there nothing wrong with it, it was actually excellent. Leo looked at his girlfriend like she was a divine being. You made this yourself? Claire gave a demure smile. I called Mrs. Phone this morning. She gave me instructions over the phone. Mrs. Phone, our hero. For a moment, Leo was so overcome with emotion, he was ready to ask her to be a bridesmaid at their wedding. What a woman. We'll give her and Mr. Chin their own special table at the reception. Claire looked at him, raising an eyebrow. It's not bad, right? Her tone was one of someone fishing for a compliment. Leo nodded vigorously, shoveling oatmeal into his mouth while mumbling praises. It's delicious. You're a master chef. Claire's eyes curved into crescent moons, her smile widening. She pushed a small plate of side dishes toward him. Don't just eat the oatmeal. Have some of this. Leo nodded without thinking, eagerly picking up his chopsticks. Okay. Then he put a bite of the side dish in his mouth. His movements suddenly froze. He was completely still. The chopsticks fell from his hand. Across from him, his girlfriend was saying casually, I didn't ask Mrs. Phone for help with the side dish. I just improvised. New rule at the LNS house. Do not, under any circumstances, eat food prepared by the lady of the house. If you must eat it, please confirm that Mrs. Phone was involved in the preparation. Food prepared under Mrs. Feng's guidance is safe for consumption. If the first dish is delicious, do not let your guard down and eat the second dish. You will die. That morning, in their major specific lecture hall, the guys from room 520 looked at Leo, completely bewildered. What's wrong with Leo? He looks a little dead. Falling asleep in the first class of the day? Youth truly is wasted on the young. Leo, who had already made 8 trips to the bathroom that morning, was sprawled on his desk, looking like he was on his last breath. He mumbled weakly, Claire cooked this morning. For words. It explained everything. The 3 roommates gasped, a look of profound respect on their faces. They all gave him a thumbs up. Badass. You're a true warrior. In the new semester, the advertising major schedules had gotten much busier. Today was Monday, and they had classes all day. 2 long lectures that morning had left the entire class bleary-eyed and yawning. It wasn't until just before noon, when their advisor, Alex, came in with some good news, that everyone finally perked up. Spring is almost here. Before the end of the month, the advertising department is probably going to organize a spring outing. It's tentatively scheduled for 2 days, 1 night. I'll let you know the exact dates later, but you can all start getting ready. The announcement was met with a chorus of excited cheers. Marco yelled from the back, "Alex, are you going to provide us with dates for the trip?" A bunch of single guys on a spring outing isn't going to be much fun. The class erupted in laughter. Alex laughed too. "In your dreams. I don't even have a girlfriend yet. If anyone's getting set up, it's me." He paused, then added with a grin, "However, you're allowed to bring a +1. As soon as the words left his mouth, Leon, in the back of the room, let out a joyful, booming shout. "Yes!" It startled everyone. They all looked over at him and burst into laughter again. This guy really didn't hold back. After a semester together, everyone in the class had gotten to know each other pretty well. They had all heard that Leon from room 520 was dating the cute girl Molly from the School of Business. Beauty and the Beast. It was actually a pretty good match. Leon was a simple, honest, and kind-hearted guy, and he got along well with everyone in class. So, when they found out he was dating a girl from the business school, they were all genuinely happy for him. Someone shouted, "Leon, when you and Molly get married, don't forget to send us wedding candy." The other students chimed in with teasing laughter. Leon grinned, still beaming, and pounded his chest. "You got it. I'll have my family send more date cakes." Enough for everyone. Enough for everyone. The class cheered again. Then someone else shifted the focus to a new target, their eyes landing on Leo. And Leo, too. "He's with our campus goddess, Claire. That's worth celebrating, right?" The others paused for a second. Then the room exploded with even more noise. Yeah. You have to do something." Leo and Claire had never made an official announcement at the university, but between the 2 welcome galas and the New Year's party, with Claire giving him flowers and the 2 of them singing a duet on stage, plus all the times they were seen walking hand in hand on campus, and even hugging and kissing, the student body, though heartbroken and shocked, had reluctantly accepted their relationship. As for their classmates in the advertising program, they had gotten the truth straight from the bragging members of room 520 long ago. What high school classmates and desk mates? That's the old version of the story. Those 2 are totally together. Northwood Customs? This is Berkeley. They've upgraded. They're a couple, the kind that makes out 10 times a day. This truth, of course, filled their classmates with a burning envy and a desire to take his place, which was why their teasing was particularly enthusiastic. Even their advisor, Alex, was watching with a smile, making no move to stop them. He looked at Leo and joked, "Our Leo has really made something of himself. He managed to win over the great Claire Sterling. He's brought honor to our department and our class. That definitely calls for a celebration." With everyone teasing him like this, Leo didn't mind. He thought for a moment, "Well, how about? While I get the chance, I'll have her cook for you all." The entire class stared at him, their eyes wide. Then, in an instant, the room erupted in a frenzy of excitement. Holy shit, the great Claire Sterling was going to cook for them. How many people would die of envy? The classroom was in an uproar, the noise nearly blowing the roof off. Leo is a legend. Leo is the man. Only the 3 other members of room 520 shuddered. They looked at Leo with trembling fear and whispered desperately, "Leo, calm down. They're just teasing. It's not a capital offense." After class, Leo and Claire would normally go to the dining hall for lunch. But today was Monday, and there was no time for that. They had another class in the afternoon on a different campus. Everyone had to grab a quick bite and then take the campus shuttle. On the shuttle, Leo sent Claire a text explaining the situation. She replied quickly, saying she understood. At the end of the message, she added a line, "Pay attention in class. And remember to miss me." Leo couldn't help but smile. Marco leaned over, curious. "What's up, Leo? Why are you smiling like that?" Then he saw the text. "Marco." He turned his head back around, his face dark. Leon and Dylan, also curious, were about to ask, "What is it?" "Let us see." Marco stopped them with a heavy hand. "Don't look. It's filth. Work has been crazy the last couple of days, so the update schedule is a bit unstable. Sorry about that. I'll try to get another one out tonight. Requesting power stones and gifts." An unexpected storyteller after a quick text exchange with his girlfriend, the campus queen, Leo tucked his phone away and glanced out the bus window. The shuttle was just pulling out of the main university gates. A little further up the road, they'd pass Mr. Chin's place, a motel. Leo was about to look for the eccentric landlord when he spotted him emerging from a barber shop down the street, hands clasped behind his back, humming a tune with a leisurely air. Leo's eyes flickered to the barbershop sign, the Gilded Phoenix Barbershop. He blinked. Son of a bitch. It was happening. The world was just one giant Gilded Phoenix conglomerate. The entire university felt like it was being encircled by Mr. Chin's businesses. At this rate, Berkeley might as well rename itself Gilded Phoenix University. Occasionally, when he and Claire were just talking, they'd try to figure out Mr. Chin's backstory. The only conclusion they could ever reach was that he had to be some unfathomably wealthy master, living in plain sight. His name, which meant money, was fitting. He was loaded. Seeing Mr. Chin strolling down the sidewalk, inspecting his empire, snapped Leo's thoughts back to his own budding venture. The first step was complete. He had successfully roped in David Chung, the founder of Happy Nest, as his first big fish. Of course, he had to show off his own genuine talent to do it. To be precise, he'd shown off David Chung's own future talent, sold it back to him, and reaped the rewards. Yes, being reborn meant you got to be that shameless and overpowered. While the real prize, the original shares of Happy Nest, was still in the pipeline, the $30,000 in cash had already hit his account. It was enough to launch the second phase of his plan. With seed money secured, he could start looking into developing a browser-based game. At this point in time, the teams making browser games were mostly just feeling their way through the dark. The games they produced were a bizarre hodgepodge of every idea under the sun. But Leo, having come from the future, was walking around with the answer key in his pocket. He wasn't worried about strategy. All he had to do was execute, step by step. And the first step was to secure the IP adaptation rights for his target web novel. The bus ride from the old campus to the new one was about 40 minutes. Leo pulled out his phone again, opened Internet Explorer, and searched for the contact information for Scrollverse licensing department. As an old fan who had lived through every stage of online literature, he remembered it all. He'd started by reading stories on forums, then moved to paid web novel sites, and finally to the free-to-read model. The medium had evolved, too, from renting physical books at a local shop for 50 cents with a $10 deposit, to reading on a PC at a LAN center, and later, to reading on his phone and even listening to audiobooks. A fleeting thought crossed his mind. If the opportunity ever arose, starting his own web novel company wouldn't be a bad idea. He'd call it the Crimson Tomato. He'd accept novels of every genre and let the authors write whatever the hell they wanted, completely uncensored. And if he, the boss, happened to enjoy campus romance stories, he'd throw his full support behind those authors. He'd just toss money at their faces and have them write a book called The Cold Campus Queen is Chasing Me, or something. He was getting sidetracked. Time to focus. Leo opened the Scrollverse homepage, scanned the page, and finally found the contact information for the head of the licensing department. He added the person's AIM screen name, stating his purpose in the friend request. Now, he just had to wait for them to accept. With that done, he searched the site for Battle Through the Heavens. He clicked on it to check its progress. The author, who went by the screen name Potato, was still diligently cranking out daily chapters, but the story was far from its first major climax. Its current stats were still just average. Leo felt a wave of relief. If Battle Through the Heavens was already a massive hit, the IP rights would cost a lot more than the 30 grand in his bank account. As Leo was lost in his calculations, a voice cut in from beside him. "Hey Leo, what are you looking at?" He turned to see Marco Shaw craning his neck over, his curiosity piqued. Seeing the text on Leo's screen, Marco's eyes widened. "Whoa, you read web novels too?" His exclamation drew the attention of the other two members of Room 520. Leon's and Dylan's heads popped up instantly. "What novel? Is it any good? Share it." In this era, college students didn't have a ton of entertainment options. There were no live streams or TikTok dances to watch. Their biggest hobbies were usually gaming and reading novels. All three of his roommates were die-hard novel fans, so the sight of a story on Leo's phone screen immediately caught their interest. Dylan squinted at Leo's phone. "Battle Through the Heavens? Never heard of it. What's it about?" Marco puffed out his chest like a seasoned connoisseur. "Leo, you must be new to this. You don't know what makes a good novel. Here, let your big bro share some prime material with you. About everything from sultry housewives to village beauties." He boasted with a smug grin. Leon handed Leo a date cake and asked, "So what's this battle thing about? Tell us. If it's good, I'll check it out." Leo smiled. "It's pretty good. It's an Eastern fantasy. It's about a genius protagonist who starts off as a total loser, gets his engagement brutally broken off, then finds a magic ring with an old master inside who becomes his mentor. He was bored on the bus anyway, so he gave his roommates a rough summary of the plot. He never expected them to get so completely hooked. As he went on, more and more of their male classmates on the bus were drawn in, gathering around Leo to listen to his story. They were enthralled, their expressions shifting from righteous indignation one moment to surging excitement the next. After talking for a solid half hour, Leo's throat was dry, so he stopped. That just made the guys from his advertising class even more frantic. Holy shit, keep going. Why'd you stop? We're not done listening yet. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he had just gotten a live demonstration of the power of battle through the heavens. He waved his hands at them. That's all for now. The author hasn't even written the next part yet. 3 chapters. Thanks to Youthful War for the big gift yesterday. Don't forget to leave review bombs and gifts. The art of the deal becoming an impromptu storyteller on the bus. Leo hadn't expected such an incredible reaction. It wasn't just the guys. Even some of the girls were leaning over their seats, straining their ears to eavesdrop, completely captivated. Leo's storytelling skills were average at best. The real credit belonged to Battle Through the Heavens itself, and he'd only covered the plot up to the latest chapter, glossing over most of the details. The fact that it had already generated this much buzz was a testament to the immense appeal of this future benchmark of web literature. It almost made Leo himself itch to do something about it. Maybe he should just write out the rest of the plot himself, get it updated all at once. Start a new book. He could earn all of Potato's royalties for him. After all, that guy only managed 2 or 3 chapters a day. Leo could churn out 10, 20 chapters a day. He'd crush the competition. Of course, it was just a passing thought. There were plenty of ways to make money. He didn't need to go down that road. Besides, right now, Potato could only earn a bit from subscriptions. If Leo's browser game took off, his income would skyrocket. As he was thinking, his roommates from room 520, still wanting more, crowded around him. Leo, that book sounds awesome. Is it really only updated to the part you told us? Screw it. I'm going to go message the author and tell him to write faster. I'm officially following this series. The other guys in the class nodded fiercely in agreement. Leo hadn't realized he'd just recruited dozens of new readers for Potato, free of charge. He thought for a moment, deciding he couldn't let the effort go to waste. He might as well drop an early ad for his unmade game. I heard they're making a browser game based on the novel pretty soon, he said casually. A web-based game. It's supposed to be just as fun as the story. If you guys are interested, you should keep an ear out for it. Maybe spend a little money. The guy's eyes lit up. It's getting a game? Holy crap. I'm definitely playing that. The different flames, the heavy ruler, all those techniques. It sounds insane. I'm going to train and become a dough king. Having already recruited a batch of future players, Leo felt a sense of satisfaction. He didn't forget to offer a word of encouragement. If you have time, get a part-time job, save up some cash. When the game comes out, if you spend enough, forget dough king. You could become a dough god. The bus, which had left the old campus around noon, arrived at the new campus at 1:30 in the afternoon. Their specialized class started at 2. Most of the advertising students were here for the first time, so with a little time to spare, they decided to explore. And it was worth exploring. The new campus was located on the west side of the city, covering a much larger area. It was lush with greenery, filled with towering trees and the pleasant scent of flowers. Brand new, European-style academic buildings were scattered throughout, and students clutching textbooks could be seen walking along the paths, creating a rich academic atmosphere. Marco rallied the members of room 520 to go exploring, but his intentions were clear. The new campus, he declared, his eyes gleaming. Its greatest feature, the School of Law and the School of Arts are both here. He was practically vibrating with excitement. It's a paradise of beautiful women. Dylan, demonstrating his knack for total recall, chimed in with precise information. Chloe Cheen from a School of Law. Isabella Zhao from a School of Arts. One's an 8 out of 10. The other's a 9. Top-tier beauties. He paused, his face filled with determination, and clenched his fist. I'm going to talk to them. The next second, a female student from the new campus walked over, holding a textbook, and politely asked Dylan, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the 4th classroom building?" Dylan just stared blankly. His grand plan to conquer the new campus came to a screeching halt at the very first step. Leo had planned to wander around with his roommates, but his phone buzzed. He pulled it out and saw that the person from Scrollver's licensing department had accepted his AIM friend request. He looked up at his roommates. "You guys go on without me. I have something to take care of." Leon looked concerned. "What's up? It's not right to leave you behind." Room 520 sticks together. Marco immediately dragged him away. "Oh, come on. What else could he be doing? He's probably going to get all mushy with Bertha Sue. Let's go. We don't need to see their PDA. Let's go find some beauties." Watching his 3 roommates march off, Leo couldn't help but shake his head and smile. He picked up his phone and opened AIM. The icon for the head of licensing at Scrollverse was now in his friends list. Screen name, Chris. Leo opened the chat window and got straight to the point, explaining that he was looking to acquire the IP rights for a novel on their site to adapt into a browser game. He didn't beat around the bush and immediately named Battle Through the Heavens. On one hand, the novel's stats hadn't taken off yet. It looked like a mediocre, mid-tier story, nothing special. On the other hand, the value of a novel's browser game rights had yet to be proven in the market. Even the licensing departments of web novel sites often didn't pay much attention to this niche business. Things unfolded just as Leo had predicted. Chris, on the other end of the chat, replied quickly. Chris, for a single browser game license, it's $300,000, plus a 15% profit share. Leo's eye twitched. For the true value of Battle Through the Heavens, that price was so ridiculously low, it was practically a giveaway. But at the same time, the fact that he quoted $300,000, the exact amount of cash Leo had, was unnervingly accurate. It almost made Leo wonder, dude, are you psychic? Did you just empty my entire wallet? Without a second thought, he shot back a counteroffer. Leo Wallace, $30,000, and a 5% profit share. I might be from the future, and I might know what this thing is worth, Leo thought, but you sure as hell don't. Why should I just hand you the money? Sealing the deal, the 30 grand he'd earned from selling the Happy Nest domain was hard-earned money, as far as Leo was concerned. He had to be frugal and stretch every penny. While the IP for Battle Through the Heavens would be priceless in the future, right now, no one, not even the author, Potato, himself, knew its true potential. As for the profit share, the industry standard was typically between 5% and 15%, unless it was a mega-hit IP, which could push the percentage up to 30% or even 40%. Chris from Scrollverse was clearly just shooting for the moon with his initial offer. Leo had ruthlessly slashed it down. Chris didn't seem offended. He calmly continued to negotiate. Finally, he gave his last offer. Chris, $60K, plus 8% profit share. This was actually within Leo's acceptable range. But he thought for a moment and typed another message. Leo Wallace, $100K, but dropped the profit share to 5%. 3-year license. The chat window on the other end went silent for a moment, as if Chris was considering it. Finally, a message came through. Chris, okay, deal. Leo grinned. Leo Wallace, pleasure doing business with you. And just like that, the deal was done. For Leo, it meant paying an extra $40,000 in cash, but he clawed back 3 percentage points in profit sharing. It seemed like a bigger upfront cost, and no one knew how the game would perform once it launched. But only Leo, the man from the future, knew that each of those percentage points would one day be worth 6 or even 7 figures. The extra 40 grand he was spending now would soon come back to him tenfold, 100-fold. Of course, the head of licensing at Scrollverse didn't know any of this, so the negotiation went smoothly. Both parties ended the chat with warm, friendly regards, agreeing to collaborate on future projects. Then they both turned away from their computers, grinning from ear to ear, thinking the exact same thing. What a complete idiot. The ultimate sucker, haha. After finalizing the deal, Chris said he would have the company's legal department draw up a digital contract and send it over that evening for Leo to review. Leo would then print it, sign it, and mail it back. They would stamp it and mail a copy back to him, and the transaction would be official. Leo was familiar with the process and had no objections. At the last moment, he casually asked for the contact information of the author of Battle Through the Heavens. His excuse was simple. When we're developing the game, I'd like to communicate with the original author on the content and planning side of things. This wasn't something the licensing department had to deal with. Chris was happy to do him a small favor and sent over Potato's contact info. He even enthusiastically invited Leo to pick out more IPs from their site in the future. Leo was polite. No problem. Next time, for sure. In his mind, this Chris guy was now in the same category as Chun K, the domain flipper, a certified clueless sucker. Chris sent both Potato's phone number and AIM screen name. Leo thought for a moment, but decided not to call the future king of web novels just yet. He opted to send an AIM friend request first, explaining who he was and why he was reaching out. Buying the rights was one thing, but when the game eventually launched, he'd need some marketing and promotional cooperation, and that would require Potato's help. This was something Scrollverse licensing department wouldn't and couldn't be bothered with. But Leo was confident he could persuade the original author. As someone reborn, if he had one thing, it was a deck full of aces. As for how he'd persuade him, the same way he'd hustled David Chung of Happy Nest. He sent the friend request and didn't get an immediate response. He wasn't worried. Seeing that it was almost 2 o'clock, he headed to the classroom building for his class. His afternoon class at the new campus was advertising design. The advertising major had three main branches: copywriting, marketing, and design. The last one leaned heavily into fine arts. But the advertising students at Berkeley had gotten in through normal academic channels, not as art specialists. So, as the professor stood at the front of the class, passionately analyzing case studies, the students below were already nodding off. With the professor assigned an in-class exercise to grab a piece of paper and design a logo, most of the class was stumped. They chewed on their pens, staring at their blank sketch pads, unable to draw a single line. The guys, especially, looked like generals being forced to do embroidery, completely lost and sweating bullets. Leo had some experience in this from his past life. He designed cartoon bread for his mom's bakery with ease. So this assignment wasn't too difficult for him. His roommates from room 520, however, were clearly out of their depth. Dylan scribbled and erased for what felt like an eternity, going through 6 or 7 sheets of paper, each one ending up a mess of black smudges. Leon drew with great solemnity, but the final logo he produced looked suspiciously like a date cake. Marco, on the other hand, attacked his paper with gusto, his pen flying across the page. He finished with a flourish and proudly presented his work to his roommates. "Here, behold the work of a master." Leo, Leon, and Dylan leaned in for a look, and then fell silent. The drawing could only be described with one word: abstract. Marco, completely oblivious to his own lack of artistic talent, was still eagerly asking, "Well, what do you think? How about what it takes to be a master of advertising design, right?" The other three exchanged glances. Finally, Leon, the good-natured leader of the dorm, chose his words carefully. "Marco, your design skills are on the same level as Bertha Sue's cooking." Leo nodded, his face perfectly straight. "Indeed, the average person isn't qualified to appreciate it. I suggest you save it for someone on the level of the Queen of England." The Queen of England, once again, had been dragged into it. 3 more chapters tonight. Don't forget to leave review bombs and gifts. Collision at the corner. Leo wasn't sure if the Queen of England's schedule was packed or if she'd ever get the chance to visit the country. But at this rate, Her Majesty already had several mandatory items on her itinerary. Appreciate the Wallace family's jade bangle. Sample a meal personally cooked by Miss Sterling. View the world-altering artwork of Marco Shaw. It sounded like a rich and varied cultural experience. In the classroom, the professor continued his lecture. Leo, having finished his assignment, sat back and let his mind wander, planning the next steps for his browser game project. He'd secure the IP rights for Battle Through the Heavens. $10,000 for a 3-year license. A bargain. He still had $20,000 left. It would have to be enough to support the initial development of the game. Barely. First, he needed to register a company. Then he had to start recruiting. In his past life, Leo hadn't worked directly in game development, but he had been involved in a few mid-sized game projects as a client, so he knew the workflow. In its simplest form, a browser game company needed at least 4 departments: content planning, art design, programming, and testing. The first part, content planning, was something he could handle almost single-handedly. He could just copy the formulas from the classic hit browser games of his previous life. And now he had the author's contact info. He could get Potato himself to help guide the process. No worries there. The programming and testing teams were also relatively simple. Browser game programming didn't require complex tech. Most of it involved using the same code templates with minor adjustments. It wouldn't be hard to find a team like that, or even just outsource it. The testing team was even easier. When the time came, everyone in the company could pitch in. In fact, Leo's gaze swept over his classmates in the lecture hall, and he raised an eyebrow. "I got a whole army of beta testers right here. Manpower is not an issue." The only real challenge was the art department. This was the most critical component after content planning. To make a browser game eye-catching, the visual design was absolutely paramount. The look of the characters, the flashiness of the skills and items, all of it directly impacted player enthusiasm. And since this game was an adaptation of Battle Through the Heavens, many of the game elements had to be faithful to the original novel. That meant the requirements for the art team were even higher. Finding people like that wouldn't be easy. They were either incredibly expensive or had already been snatched up by major game companies. He couldn't just wander out with 20 grand and expect to hire top talent. Maybe he could recruit from the university itself. The thought flickered through his mind, and his eyes instinctively scanned his classmates again. A dark expression crossed his face as he immediately dismissed the idea. Relying on this bunch, forget 20 grand. 200 grand wouldn't be enough to cover the damages. He still hadn't figured out a solution for the art team when the bell rang, signaling the end of class. The advertising students would soon be taking the shuttle back to the old campus. They had about 40 minutes before departure. Some students headed to the convenience store for snacks, while others decided to wander around the new campus a bit longer. The three members of Room 520, led by Marco, had already done one lap and failed to find the much-anticipated girls of the law and art schools. Still not giving up, they were planning another expedition. Marco turned to Leo. "You coming, Leo? We're looking for beauties." Leo just smiled and waved him off. "I'll pass. I'll just wander around on my own." Beauties? None of them could compare to his own campus queen. Besides, was he, Leo Wallace, the kind of guy to be so easily distracted by some pretty face? Dylan chimed in, his voice full of excitement. "Forget Leo. We'll go ourselves." We walked past the School of Law earlier, and a lot of the girls were wearing their school's custom uniforms. Leo couldn't help but chuckle. His roommates were so transparent. What was so great about a custom uniform? Then he heard Dylan add, his voice painting a vivid picture. All of them in white shirts, black blazers, pencil skirts, heels, and black stockings. Leo's head snapped up. What kind of stockings? In the end, it took a monumental effort of will for him to righteously decline the invitation to go admire the beauties of the School of Law. He parted ways with his roommates for the time being and wandered around the academic building by himself. His own advertising program was useless for his current needs. But Berkeley did have a fine arts major, housed within the School of Arts. The school's full name was the School of Performing and Fine Arts. According to Marco's intel, the girl with the consensus 9.0 rating, Isabella Zhao, was from this school. Leo wasn't interested in that girl. He was just hoping to find some promising art students he could recruit for his game. He wandered aimlessly through the building and, to his surprise, found an art classroom. The room was simple, filled with easels scattered about, some still holding sketches and works in progress left by students. It was empty at the moment. Leo pushed the door open and walked in, casually looking at the pieces on the easels. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything that truly caught his eye. Most of it was standard charcoal sketches or oil paintings. He wasn't an expert, and it wasn't what he was looking for. Shaking his head in disappointment, Leo turned to leave. At that same moment, just around the corner from the classroom's back door, the sound of hurried footsteps approached. Meanwhile, over at the School of Law, Marco, Leon, and Dylan were squatting by the entrance of the academic building, their faces etched with disappointment. Didn't see Chloe Cheen, an 8 out of 10 beauty from the law school, plus another half a point for the uniform. What a waste of a trip. Dylan had an idea. Wait, what about Isabella Zhao from the School of Arts? She's a certified 9 out of 10 beauty. They say she's not that far off from Bertha Sue. Even Leon, who already had a girlfriend, perked up. Not far off from Bertha Sue. An unexpected encounter when the girl on the floor looked up, revealing her face. A few thoughts instantly flashed through Leo's mind. Damn, she's gorgeous. More gorgeous than Lily Lou. Almost on par with Annie Cakes. For a man of Leo's straightforward sensibilities, this was about the highest praise he could offer. Lily Lou was, after all, the acknowledged girl of the humanities freshman class. Though in his mind she was mostly just an unsuitable dinner companion, her looks and aura were flawless, gentle as water, a classic beauty with countless admirers. As for his girlfriend's best friend and pseudo-sister-in-law, Anna, a card-carrying member of the Wallace Sterling extended family. In his eyes, she was a lazy, gluttonous, and cunning little demoness. But in terms of overall appeal, she had effortlessly held the title of campus queen at the prestigious East Bay Financial University for 3 straight years. When she blossomed, all other flowers paled in comparison. And now, this girl, sitting dazed on the floor, possessed a beauty that surpassed Lily Lou's and even rivaled Anna's. She had a cool, aloof aura, yet it was tinged with a pure innocence. Her features were, as if painted, with a quiet, classical elegance, and she naturally exuded a heart-wrenching, fragile charm. It was as if she had stepped out of a painting, a girl from a misty river town, or a faded photograph from another era. Even Leo found himself staring for a moment. She looked vaguely familiar. That hit him. You're Isabella Zhao, a freshman in the School of Arts at Berkeley. The runner-up on the Student Forum's beauty ranking, rated a 9.0, second only to a certain Claire Sterling, the reigning it girl of the art school, a fine arts major, Isabella Zhao. Leo remembered seeing her photo and profile when he was browsing the forums with his roommates in room 520. Seeing her in person, he recognized her instantly. And then, Leo's world felt a little chaotic. His first unexpected encounter with the art school's freshman girl, and he'd greeted her with a shoulder throw. She was still sitting on the ground, looking stunned. What'd I do now? Seeking advice online, urgently. Isabella Zhao, still on the floor, clearly hadn't processed what had just happened. Hearing Leo's question, she just stared and nodded blankly. She confirmed, then looked up at him again with watery, bewildered eyes, as if waiting for a reasonable explanation. A gaze like that would have melted any normal person's heart. Marco would probably be on his knees, begging for forgiveness. Leon would have likely offered up his entire stash of date cakes as a token of his sincere apology. And Dylan? Dylan would probably be so flustered he couldn't even speak. But Leo was not a normal person. Being stared at by the art school's girl made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The art school's girl, the second-ranked beauty of the freshman class. And I just threw her on her ass. If word of this got out, he'd become public enemy number one for every guy at Berkeley. Although, considering his relationship with Ms. Bertha Sue, he was probably already at the top of that list. But that wasn't the point. The point was to handle this situation right now. Leo's mind raced. He put on a sincere, concerned expression and looked at Isabella. Do you remember what just happened? Isabella, still on the floor, looked at him and nodded slowly. Yes. You shoulder threw me onto the ground. Leo's brow broke out in a sweat. He quickly shook his head. No, that's not right. Let's start over. He began to patiently guide her. I was walking down the hallway, and you came around the corner. Then you bumped into me, right? The art school beauty frowned, a gesture that was somehow still captivating. After a moment of thought, she nodded slightly. Yes. Leo breathed an internal sigh of relief and continued his gentle coaxing. And then, you lost your balance and were about to fall, so I reached out to help you. But you grabbed my hand and tried to use a martial arts move on me. Right. Isabella seemed to be coming to her senses. She nodded again, obediently. Yes. I thought you were up to no good. Leo's expression instantly turned righteous. That was your misunderstanding. You nearly repaid my kindness with aggression. Of course, we're both students, so we can let a small thing like this go. The art school beauty seemed dazed by his righteous demeanor. She nodded again, feeling like what he said made sense. But something still felt off. But you shoulder through me in the end. At this, Leo's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated righteousness. That was just a reflex. Miss Zhao, you used a martial arts move on me, and I responded in kind. It was a sparring match between experts. And during a sparring match, accidents can happen. It's perfectly reasonable, wouldn't you say? The reasonable man had returned to the battlefield. His divine art of reasonableness had completely bewildered the art school's girl. A look of confusion washed over her delicate, pure face. Finally, she nodded uncertainly. Ray, Sonable, I guess. Success. A tiny, cartoon version of Leo was setting off fireworks in his mind. That's my boy, Leo Hammer. Clutching it from the jaws of defeat, he quickly extended a hand to help her up. Get up, the floor is cold. You were lucky you ran into me. You can't go around recklessly challenging people to sparring matches like that. In a matter of seconds, he had completely absolved himself of all blame. Isabella was still in a daze as she nodded. Okay, thank you. Look at that. Such a polite girl, even knows to thank me. The little cartoon Leo, in his mind, was grinning ear to ear. On the outside, he remained composed. Don't mention it. Hey, you drop your things. Let me get them for you. Isabella had been carrying a drawing board and a stack of papers, which had all scattered when she fell. Leo swiftly helped her gather them, handing them back with a helpful and honest expression. However, as he was handing the papers back, his eyes fell on one of the sketches, and what he saw made him freeze. An unforgettable impression. The bus slowly pulled away, carrying the advertising students from the humanities school back to the old Berkeley campus. Inside, students chatted idly, marveling at how clean and beautiful the new campus was, while also complaining that the advertising design class was sheer torture. In the back, the members of room 520 were still lamenting. The law school, the art school, two top-tier beauties, and we didn't see a single one. Marco sighed wistfully. My intel was bad. My buddy swore Chloe Cheen had a class in the law building today, but we waited and got nothing. If I'd known, I would have tried my luck at the art school. Maybe we would have run into the great Isabella Zhao sketching something. Leon, the honest one, seemed quite content. As he munched on a date cake, he said optimistically, it was fine. We didn't see that girl, but the girls in the law school were all really pretty. Wearing those uniforms, they looked like high-powered lawyers. Very classy. Marco shot him a look of utter disappointment. You fool. How can those commoners compare to a girl? If the regular girls look that good, imagine how beautiful Chloe Cheen and Isabella Zhao must be. They'd be celestial. Dylan, beside him, had a dreamy look on his face. 8 out of 10 Chloe Cheen, 9 out of 10 Isabella Zhao. A 9. That's only 1 point less than Bertha Sue. How beautiful would that be? Even Leon and Marco couldn't help but get lost in their imaginations. The next second, they all turned to look at the boyfriend of the perfect 10 campus queen. So, Leo, where did you disappear to? Leo was sitting by the window, watching the scenery fly by, a little lost in thought. Hearing his roommates, he answered casually, I just wandered around the academic building. Went up to the second floor, to an art classroom. An art classroom? The guys from room 520 immediately perked up. Hey, isn't that where the art majors have their studio classes? I heard the girls who study art are just as pretty as the ones in performing arts. So many beauties. Leo, did you see any? Leo subconsciously touched his nose. I guess you could say that. Just didn't get a clear look before I shouldered through the art school's freshman it girl to the ground. Following that train of thought, he couldn't help but recall the encounter in the hallway by the art studio. He'd managed to talk his way out of it, leaving her completely bewildered. He hadn't expected the dignified it girl of the art school to be a little slow on the uptake. But there was another unexpected discovery. When he was helping her pick up her scattered sketches, he'd caught a glimpse of her work. It wasn't the standard charcoal or oil paintings he'd seen from the other students in the classroom. What Isabella Zhao was drawing was surprising, a pleasant surprise even, but he hadn't had time to process his thoughts before the shuttle was about to leave. And more importantly, before he could say anything more to her, a group of girls had come around the other end of the hallway, calling her name. So, Leo, being the coward he was, had offered a righteous and polite farewell before making a run for it. The three members of room 520 didn't pay much attention to Leo's vague reply, lost in their own fantasies. Next time we have class on the new campus, we have to check out the art classrooms. Oh man, what would I do if I ran into Isabella Zhao? How should I greet her to make the most profound impression? Leo, next to them, subconsciously muttered, you could try a shoulder throw. The words hung in the air. The bus fell silent. Marco, Leon, and Dylan all turned to stare at Leo. He felt a prickle of guilt and was about to come up with an explanation when his three roommates burst out laughing. Ha ha, Leo, since when did you get so funny? Give Isabella Zhao a shoulder throw? Holy crap, where do you come up with this stuff? Isabella Zhao is famous across the entire university. She has suitors lined up from the new campus art school all the way to our old campus, and probably at half the other colleges in the city. Forget the fact that she knows martial arts herself. If anyone even touched a hair on her head, they'd have a hit out on them from all her admirers. Ha ha ha. The three of them roared with laughter, the air thick with merriment. Leo just sat there. Right. He suddenly felt like his life on campus had just gotten a lot more dangerous. As the shuttle made its way back to the old campus, a group of art majors at the new campus were walking with Isabella Zhao towards the dining hall, chatting as they went. One of the girls asked curiously, Isabella, who was that guy just now? Another one trying to hit on you. As Isabella's friends, they were used to it. The freshman girl of the art school. Unbeatable looks, talented, and skilled in both the arts and, apparently, self-defense. She could easily outshine the girls from any other school. Even though there was talk of some untouchably beautiful girl named Claire Sterling from the School of Business on the old campus, the so-called undisputed campus queen, none of them had ever seen her. They were skeptical. Could she really be prettier than our Isabella? Probably just hype from the business school. Those guys are good at marketing, if nothing else. Hearing her friend's questions, Isabella paused. She recalled the scene in the hallway, a look of rare confusion on her face. Hitting on me? It didn't seem like it. She was also one of the cool, aloof types. When guys tried to flirt with her or confess their love, she usually just treated them with a polite, distant refusal. And if they got too pushy, she, having trained in self-defense, wouldn't hesitate to put them in their place. But what happened in the hallway? And that guy, it was just so bizarre, it had completely thrown her off. If he was trying to hit on me, would he really start with a shoulder throw? It had all happened so fast. She hadn't had time to put up her cold facade or even use her self-defense skills. She was just thrown to the ground, and then she'd listen in a daze as he spouted his righteous, persuasive nonsense. By the time he'd scurried away, she still hadn't fully recovered. Thinking back on it now, her mind was still a mess. All she remembered was that but kind of hurt. Isabella subconsciously reached back and touched her backside. A faint, sharp pain was still there. It brought a hiss of air through her teeth and snapped her back to reality. Her eyes narrowed, becoming clear and sharp. Whatever his deal was, she had his face memorized now. And anyone who could talk that much nonsense was definitely not a good person. Hoping for one more tonight. It's the weekend. Don't forget to leave review bombs and gifts. Bait and switch by the time the shuttle returned to the old campus. It was already evening. As he stepped off the bus, Leo sneezed. He looked around, confused. Did someone just think of me? Who's bad-mouthing me? After a moment's thought, he dismissed it. It had to be a mistake. He, Leo Hammer, was an upstanding citizen who never scammed or tricked anyone. How could anyone have a grudge against him? He selectively forgot the afternoon's shoulder throw incident, bid a cheerful farewell to his roommates, and headed for the dining hall. Tonight, he had a date with his campus queen girlfriend for dinner. When he got there, he saw Claire already waiting by the entrance. She stood at the bottom of the steps, her stunning, cool beauty a beacon. The early spring evening breeze rustled a few strands of her hair, making her look even more like a celestial being who had descended to the mortal world. She was as beautiful as a painting. Passing students couldn't help but stare, mesmerized. The business school students puffed out their chests with pride. See that? That's our school star. A perfect 10, Claire Sterling. The next second, a disruptive figure entered the frame, walking up to the girl and asking with a smile, "Been waiting long?" The girl raised an eyebrow. "Not long. I just got here." Then, she stepped forward, rose onto her tiptoes, and planted a soft kiss on his lips. She looked up at her boyfriend, her eyes curving into crescent moons. "Did you miss me?" Leo nodded righteously. "Of course." Without missing a beat, he leaned in and returned the kiss on her fragrant lips. Daily kiss quota, 2/5. The air around them fell silent. The business school students who had been beaming with pride a moment ago were now frozen in place, their expressions stunned. This time, it was the humanities students' turn to walk by with swagger. "See that?" one of them said proudly. "That's our school's guy, the man who conquered the perfect 10 campus queen." The business school students were speechless. They turned and walked away, their eyes twitching, muttering curses under their breath. "Damn you, Northwood High." Oblivious to the bleak future awaiting their high school underclassmen, the young couple naturally linked hands and walked into the dining hall. They got their food and found an empty table in the corner. As they ate, Claire casually asked about Leo's afternoon class at the new campus. Leo answered just as casually, telling her how frustrating the advertising design class was and how disastrous his classmate creations had been. Especially Marco's, he added. His art was as abstract as Bertha Sue's cooking. The girl looked up, a questioning glint in her eyes. Leo instantly changed his tune, his expression seamless. What I meant was, Marco's creation was as bold and imaginative as your cooking. The average person can't appreciate it. It should be reserved for important figures, like the Queen of England. Claire nodded in understanding, genuinely surprised by Marco's hidden talent. Marco has a knack for that. That's impressive. Sterling Holdings could consider hiring a design talent like that in the future, the heiress mused. Another great asset for the company's future. After Leo finished talking about his class, Claire still seemed unsatisfied. She looked at him and raised an eyebrow. And Leo blinked, confused. And what? Claire put down her chopsticks and rested her chin on her hand, looking at him expectantly. The new campus, the School of Law and the School of Arts. So many pretty girls. Did a certain someone not go take a look? Her tone was casual, as if she was just making conversation. But Leo accurately detected the murderous intent lurking beneath the surface. He laughed instantly. "Of course not. I'm not like Marco and the guys. I'm not interested in any beauties from the law or art schools." Claire's eyes twinkled, and a playful smile touched her lips. "Is that so? I heard the law school girls all wear uniforms. White stockings, high heels, long legs." Without thinking, Leo corrected her. "They're black stockings." The air suddenly went still, and then it began to freeze. A nearby student walking by with a food tray overheard the exchange. A moment ago, he had been filled with envy. Now, his expression shifted to pure schadenfreude. Not envious anymore. Why envy a dead man walking? Ha ha. Sure enough, the girl across from Leo narrowed her eyes. "Oh, so a certain someone knows the details quite well, does he?" It was only then that Leo realized his mistake. His eyes widened in horror, and a tiny cartoon version of himself screamed internally. Oh crap, it was a trap. He immediately started sputtering, swearing on his life that he hadn't gone with Marco and the others, that he'd just wandered around the building and stopped by an art classroom. Without thinking, he blurted out the story of his encounter with the art school's freshman girl. Claire paused. Isabella Zhao. Even though they were on different campuses, she had heard of the art school's new star. Cool yet pure, an elegant, classical beauty. A 9 out of 10 girl whose looks and aura were formidable. If the great Bertha Sue hadn't descended upon Berkeley, this year's title of freshman campus queen would have undoubtedly been hers. Claire's eyebrow rose again, and she looked at her boyfriend with a smirk. What did you think of her? This was an undisguised, full-blown death trap of a question. Leo thought about it seriously, then gave his firm, decisive answer. Easily defeated. For simple, powerful words. The verdict of a true, titanium alloy straight man. Claire just stared at him, a massive question mark appearing over her head. Question mark. 3 chapters. Don't forget to leave review bombs and small gifts. The It Girl Killer Claire almost died laughing. When her boyfriend finished honestly recounting the afternoon's events, the chance encounter in the art studio hallway with the art school's freshman It Girl, and the clean, decisive shoulder throw, the typically cool and collected campus queen burst into a fit of laughter, all pretense of composure gone. The other students walking by stared in disbelief. Holy crap. The aloof Claire Sterling can laugh. And she looks so beautiful when she does. A 10 out of 10 isn't enough. A laughing Claire is an 11. The students' gazes shifted to Leo, now filled with even more envy and jealousy. What on earth did this guy say to make her so happy? Did he tell a joke? We can tell jokes, too. But at that moment, Leo could only look on with a dark expression as his girlfriend laughed uncontrollably. I told you. It was an accident. He was innocent. He didn't want it to happen. But knew the girl would just pop out for around a corner and attack him first. It was purely self-defense. That's what you say, Claire finally managed to say, wiping a tear from her eye. Let's see if her legions of admirers believe you. Leo thought about it for a second. What would happen if Isabella Zhao's fans found out about this? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. No, this has to be kept top secret. He looked at Claire with a serious expression. This is between you, me, and the heavens. Not a word to anyone. Otherwise, you'll be a widow. Claire nodded, still trying to suppress her laughter. A tiny cartoon version of herself was practically rolling on the floor. It was too funny. It proved that the usual worries other girls had about their boyfriends fooling around were a non-issue for her. She didn't even have to consider his moral standards or his loyalty to her. The sheer, unadulterated power of his titanium alloy, straight man aura made it impossible for him to have any kind of ambiguous relationship with another beautiful woman. Lily Liu, the humanities It Girl, her fashion sense was deemed unsuitable for dinner dates, so she was out. Isabella Zhao, the art school It Girl. Her first encounter with him earned her a one-way ticket to the floor via shoulder throw. Claire looked her boyfriend up and down, her eyes dancing with amusement. Her little idiot. By the time he graduated, he might just earn the title of It Girl Killer. Finally, she set the jokes aside and asked with genuine concern, "You threw her to the ground. Was she upset?" That was the important question. Leo's spirits lifted, and he answered with confidence, "No problem. I handled it. That girl is pretty easy to fool. I threw her on her ass, and she still thanked me." He puffed out his chest, laughing. "She was lucky she ran into me. I'm a kind person. If it were someone else, they could have taken even more advantage of a gullible beauty like her, and she probably wouldn't have even noticed. Ha ha ha." His cheerful laughter filled the air. And then, suddenly, the temperature dropped. The laughter froze in his throat. He shivered, wondering if the dining hall's AC was set too low. Then he looked up and met his girlfriend's narrowing, dangerous gaze. Oh, so a certain someone wanted to take advantage of her, did he? Realization dawned. Leo's pupils quaked violently. Oh crap, I'm so dead. When Leo returned to the dorm, the members of room 520 turned to look at him as he walked in, and their eyes widened. Leo, what happened to you? From their perspective, Leo's face was normal, except for his lips, which were red and swollen in several places. It was impossible to miss. Hearing their questions, Leo subconsciously touched his lips, hissing at the faint sting. It's nothing. I just said the wrong thing. The vague explanation was all it took for the guys to understand instantly. Said the wrong thing? You made Bertha Sue mad? Marco burst out laughing, gloating. Ha! You finally got what was coming to you. See, I told you having a campus queen for a girlfriend isn't all good. As a single man, I don't have these problems. Leon, ever the considerate one, handed him a date cake. Eat this. It'll help with the pain. Dylan just stared at Leo's lips in disbelief. Is Bertha Sue that scary when she's angry? She beat you up that bad? Leo took the date cake from his dorm leader and held it to his lips like an ice pack. No, he said casually. She kissed me. The aftermath of making Bertha Sue jealous was severe. Before they parted ways, she had suddenly lunged at him, kissing and biting his lips fiercely. Hence the swelling. The dorm room fell silent. Marco stared. Dylan stared. They were completely stunned, frozen like statues in a harsh cold wind. Damn, all you people with girlfriends. Kill them all. Kill them all. The two single members of room 520 were on the verge of tears from sheer frustration. Single people have no rights, is that it? You're just going to rub it in our faces. Leon, let's team up and shun him. The call to arms went unanswered. Dylan and Marco turned to look and saw that their dorm leader, Leon, was on his phone, a blissful, goofy smile on his face as he talked to his adorable girlfriend. Did you eat? Remember to have a date cake to help with digestion. I miss you too. Dylan and Marco stood there utterly defeated. We can't stay in this dorm anymore. We're going back to Gotham. That night, after the lights were out, Leo lay in his top bunk as his phone vibrated. He answered it. His girlfriend's cool, pleasant voice came through the receiver. Do your lips still hurt? Leo burrowed his head under the covers and whispered honestly, a little. The voice on the other end softened. Idiot. Why didn't you say so if it hurt? I'll bring you some lip balm tomorrow. She felt bad after all. Leo, sensing his opportunity, immediately started laying on the compliments, praising her for being thoughtful, kind, gentle, and understanding. Bertha Sue was finally satisfied. The couple whispered for a while longer. Before they hung up, her voice came through again. Leo, you're not allowed to think about taking advantage of other girls. Her cool tone carried an undisguised, fierce threat. But her next words made his heart skip a beat, even under the covers. If you're going to take advantage of someone, it can only be me. The bodyguard and the bird. The next few days passed with the usual routine of classes and coursework. As the semester ramped up, the schedule was no longer as relaxed as it had been in the fall. It wasn't just Leo's advertising program. Even Claire's international finance major had classes on the new campus. This meant the couple had less time to spend together. Even grabbing a meal required coordinating their schedules in advance. Miss Sterling was not pleased. For the past 2 days, she'd been staring at her class schedule with a frown, trying to figure out which idiot had designed it. I'll have Mr. Joe take care of them later. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. The former Special Forces operative had spent the last few days diligently driving his boss around. In his spare time, he'd even volunteered for extra duties, like buying newspapers from the corner stand. Mr. Sterling was deeply moved, repeatedly telling his vice presidents, "Look at Joe. Meticulous, attentive to every detail. Sterling Holdings needs more dedicated talent like him." The vice presidents would nod and smile obsequiously. Indeed. You're right, Mr. Sterling. Joe is truly your most trusted man." Today, the elite soldier was finally sent back into the field. His boss's orders were clear. The best steel is used for the sharpest blade, and the most capable subordinate must handle the most critical mission. Keep a close watch on that punk. Protect his precious daughter from being taken advantage of. On Wednesday afternoon, Mr. Joe drove to the LNS house on the coast. The couple happened to have the afternoon off and had returned to their single slaughterhouse early. As Joe walked through the yard and knocked on the door, he was on the phone, listening to his boss's earnest instructions. You have to watch them closely. You're my last line of defense around Claire. Don't let that punk kid get past you. The Sterling family's greatest threat nodded solemnly. He looked up and saw the couple nestled comfortably on the living room sofa, watching a movie. Leo casually popped a potato chip into his girlfriend's mouth. Claire caught the chip but didn't eat it right away. Instead, she lifted her chin. Leo understood instantly, leaning in to bite off a piece of the chip from her lips. She seized the opportunity and planted a quick kiss on his mouth. It was over in a flash. She smiled at her boyfriend, raising an eyebrow. Good. The move had caught Leo completely off guard. He took a second to recover before nodding enthusiastically. Delicious. Mr. Joe stood there, frozen. His boss's confused voice came through the phone. Joe, what's wrong? Is the signal bad? Did something happen? The former Special Forces operative struggled to maintain his composure. Nothing's wrong, sir, he said, his voice steady. Everything is normal. Yes, just another perfectly ordinary day of my pupils quaking violently. The elite soldier's arrival was timely, as he had a task to perform. During their winter break back in Northwood, Leo and Claire had seen that Kevin and Tessa both had their driver's licenses, which served as a reminder. Miss Sterling immediately gave her personal driver a new mission: find a connection to get their licenses quickly and easily. For a man of Mr. Joe's caliber, this was a trivial matter. With years of military service, he had old comrades and subordinates scattered everywhere. The police chief back in the city was one of his former men. This time, upon receiving his young Mrs. request, he simply pulled another contact from his extensive network. One of his old subordinates now ran a driving school on the outskirts of the city. With Leo and Claire's driving skills, they didn't even need lessons. They just had to study for the written test, and the practical exams could be scheduled back-to-back. If all went well, they could have it all done by the weekend. Neither of them was stressed about the driving test. They just needed a little practice. Since Mr. Joe had brought the Maybach, the couple was itching to take it for a spin on the empty lot behind their gated community. The three of them went outside to the parking area in front of the LNS house. The sun poured down, making the elegant curves of the black Maybach gleam. The magnificent Maybach was back in action. Maybach, let's go. In a birdcage hanging from a branch by the gate, a round-headed, chubby parrot named Reasonable had been lazily sunbathing. The sight of the unexpected visitor sent it into a joyful frenzy, hopping and flapping around its cage. Leo let out. Reasonable didn't fly away. With a whoosh, it landed firmly on the Maybach's hood ornament. It looked around, puffed out its chest, and let out a series of triumphant squawks. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, Maybach, ? Mr. Joe stared dumbfounded. What is that thing? Where did it come from? Leo explained with a smile. We saw it in an exotic bird shop last time we were out. Claire liked it, so we bought it as a pet. The parrot on the hood ornament seemed to have overheard. It turned its head to look at them and flapped its wings proudly. Call me Crown Prince. Call me Crown Prince. I've been with the Emperor and Empress for years. Who knows what TV show it had picked up all that nonsense from? Mr. Joe nodded, his expression calm, trying to ignore the parrot's arrogant declarations. I see. At the same time, his pupils began to quake violently. Crown Prince, Emperor and Empress. He imagined this loud-mouthed parrot in front of his boss, squawking and spilling every secret it knew. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He'd worked so hard to keep this secret for over half a year. He couldn't let some stupid bird ruin it all. His gaze shifted subtly to the chubby parrot on the hood ornament, and he began to formulate a plan. On the hood ornament, Reasonable's feathers suddenly puffed up. It flapped its wings in terror. Killing intent. I sense killing intent. An education and respect the young couple took the Maybach to the empty lot behind the community to practice, leaving the former Special Forces operative and the round-headed parrot to watch the house. Mr. Joe said he wanted to bond with Reasonable. His expression was calm and unchanging, betraying nothing. Leo and Claire saw no issue and nodded agreeably. Reasonable. Then they got in a Maybach and drove off, leaving the chubby parrot hopping frantically in its cage. Help me, help me, help me. And the former soldier, who was now casting a sinister gaze toward the birdcage. Driving in circles on the empty lot, the couple had a great time. The Maybach had a great time, too. So much so that eventually it stopped in the middle of the lot and began to vibrate at a steady, happy rhythm. A long while later, Leo and Claire, faces flushed and slightly out of breath, returned to the front seats. Hey, don't get the wrong idea. This is a wholesome story. The two had simply gotten tired of driving and decided to rest in the back seat for a bit, reliving the pure and innocent memories of their time in the car during winter break. It was just a coincidence that Leo now had a few new hickeys on his neck, and a couple of Claire's blouse buttons had come undone. We didn't do anything, just drove for a while. That was their casual explanation to Mr. Joe when they returned to the LNS house. Mr. Joe, his pupils quaking, managed a calm nod. Reasonable. Perched on his shoulder, the round-headed parrot nodded vigorously in agreement. Reasonable. 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 It was only then that the couple noticed that their parrot, Reasonable, seemed to have become quite friendly with Mr. Joe in such a short time. The elite soldier explained with a calm and steady demeanor. I get along well with animals. Leo and Claire looked at each other, question marks popping up over their heads. They eyed the soldier, then the obedient parrot on his shoulder. Mr. Joe has that skill? Though they were skeptical, seeing how affectionately Reasonable was nuzzling up to him, they had no choice but to believe it. The soldier has multi-classed into a druid. The truth was quite simple. While Leo and Claire were practicing, Mr. Joe had calmly warned the parrot to watch its words and be a good bird. Then, in front of Reasonable, he had leisurely demonstrated his ability to break bricks with his bare hands and shatter a tree with an iron shoulder strike. As the old tree in the yard trembled and broken bricks lay scattered on the ground, the parrot was utterly terrified. It surrendered instantly, bowing its head in submission. Big brother, big brother, big brother. Back at the house, the couple had dinner with the soldier. Of course, Leo was the one who cooked. After eating, it was still early. Leo remembered that he needed to buy a laptop for his upcoming work, so he suggested a trip to a nearby mall. Claire naturally tagged along, and since his young miss was going out, the elite soldier, designated by Mr. Sterling himself as both reconnaissance agent and punk defense line, had to follow. The three of them drove to the mall in the Maybach. They found a computer store, and Leo wasn't particularly picky. Laptops in this era were all about the same. He found one that looked decent for around $800. For a college student at the time, this was a huge expense, but with 20 grand in the bank, his wallet was more than sufficient. Claire, standing beside her boyfriend, didn't know much about computer brands, but she had her own logic. This one is 800, she said, pointing. That one is 2,000. The more expensive one is better, right? Leo followed her finger and nodded. Oh, that one is better, but it's not great value for the money. The $800 one is good enough. Before he could finish, Claire cut him off. Then we'll get the $2,000 one. We don't need to consider value. The great Miss Sterling, future head of Sterling Holdings. What is this value for money you speak of? The most expensive option is always the right one. And she didn't just buy one. She got one for herself, too. Two, in total. Her plan was to keep them at the LNS house so they could play games together. Yes, the brilliant Bertha Sue had already learned professional gaming terms like playing together. Her last trip to Mr. Chien's Gilded Phoenix Land Center, where she played Audition Online and Bubble Blast, had awakened a tiny gaming addiction. Unable to refuse his girlfriend, Leo finally agreed. It would be the first official gift he'd bought her since earning his own money. He was about to take the two laptops to the counter, but he didn't even have to lift a finger. Claire raised an eyebrow, and her personal driver stepped forward and took the boxes. Mr. Joe is strong, Miss Sterling said considerately to her boyfriend. Don't wear yourself out. Then she smiled and took Leo's hand, leading him to the cashier, leaving the former soldier standing there in a daze. Mr. Joe just stood there. Suddenly, I can relate to how my boss feels. A daughter who is given away is truly like water splashed on the ground. At the checkout counter, Leo was about to pull out his bank card when a slender, fair hand stopped him. He looked up, surprised, and met his girlfriend's gaze. Claire frowned. What are you doing? Leo realized what was happening and chuckled. Paying. Don't worry, I have money. He didn't even get a chance to explain that he'd recently fleeced the founder of Happy Nest out of 30 grand before Claire shook her head. I'll pay. She looked at him, her brow furrowed. My money is your money. Leo couldn't help but smile. Then isn't my money your money too? She raised an eyebrow. It's different. Your money is from our mom. What our mom gave you is your future dowry and my future trousseau. You save it to marry me later. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So until I marry you, I just live off you? Claire nodded happily. Exactly. Be a good boy and let me take care of you. I've got the money to support you. She patted his head, her tone light and casual. If you feel guilty about it, you can just serve me tea, give me massages, and wash my feet when we get home. The young male cashier at the counter was stunned. His eyes darted back and forth between Claire and Leo. He looked at Claire as if she were a goddess, and he looked at Leo with a gaze of pure, unadulterated worship. Dude, you're a legend. How did you do it? The cashier's eyes happened to pass between the couple. Huh? Why is there an old guy standing there? And why are his eyes shaking so much? Free chapter pack. As always, asking for review bombs and small gifts. A perfectly reasonable exchange of gifts, just a simple trip to the mall to buy a laptop. And somehow, they still managed to serve up a massive dose of PDA to an innocent bystander. On the drive back to the LNS house, a certain retired Special Forces operative felt the pupils of his eyes quake under the pale moonlight. Once they were back, Mr. Joe immediately ducked into the guest room, grabbed his intelligence logbook, and began to study and write with feverish intensity. Today was another day of information overload. The soldier had once again become a scholar, pen in hand, brain working at maximum capacity. How was he supposed to record this? Miss gives a gift to classmate, requests classmate to provide a betrothal gift in the future? No, that wasn't right. With a decisive stroke, he summarized it simply. Miss and classmate engaged in a reasonable exchange of gifts. And what about that business on the living room sofa, feeding each other potato chips mouth to mouth? The retired operative's eyes trembled again before he steeled himself and wrote. Miss and classmate shared snacks. And then there was that damn parrot, offering to give shoulder rubs and foot massages. The more he tried to creatively reinterpret the day's events in his logbook, the more a profound sorrow welled up inside him. This job working for the Sterlings was getting harder and harder every damn day. Meanwhile, Leo and Claire took the new laptops to the study. Inside, they unboxed them, placing the sleek, high-end machines on the desk. Even though Leo had initially thought they were a little pricey, the moment he powered his on and saw the fluid, lightning-fast boot-up speed, he had to admit the money was well spent. Still, a pang of guilt hit him. Here he was, a man reborn, and he hadn't accomplished a single major thing yet. He was just living off his gorgeous girlfriend. It didn't sit right. Leo looked up at Claire. We should spend less money from now on. I haven't even really bought you any gifts yet, she said, sensing his guilt. She smiled softly, taking his hand and giving it a comforting squeeze. It's not like that. You've given me plenty of things. She ticked them off. The matching hats, the Blackie the Leo hammer doll, and the jade bangle my mom gave you. One bangle, she said, her eyes suddenly sparkling with a renewed fervor, is worth 100 of these laptops. At the mention of the bangle, Bertha Sue was back in her element. It had been 2 whole days since she'd seen it, and she missed it terribly. Without another word, she abandoned her boyfriend and the 2 new laptops in the study, spun around, and dashed upstairs to the master bedroom. It was time to open the safe and reacquaint herself with the Wallace family heirloom. Watching the beautiful silhouette of his girlfriend hurrying away, Leo couldn't help but chuckle, a warmth spreading through his chest. It was the same old thought. To have a girlfriend like this. What more could a man ask for? Shaking his head with a smile, Leo pulled the laptop closer and began the initial setup. He didn't need a high-performance machine. At most, he'd use it to play some games with Claire or test the browser game once it was online. For now, though, its primary purpose was simple. He just needed it to type up the game design document. He created a new Word document on the desktop. Staring at the blank page, Leo organized his thoughts and began to type, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He summoned memories of the blockbuster browser games from his past life, while cross-referencing them with the source material of Battle Through the Heavens. He started by building a rough framework for the game's content. It was a technical skill. The design document needed to include the leveling system, skill categories, faction alignments, and even the fundamental world building and background summary. Of course, with the novel as his guide, he didn't have to create much from scratch. In a way, he was just extracting the novel's core outline. This meant he wouldn't get stuck with writer's block like some pathetic authors who struggled to produce 2 chapters a day. For Leo, the words flowed like a torrent, his inspiration divinely guided. He was definitely doing better than a retired Special Forces operative in the guest room, chewing on his pen and struggling to fabricate intelligence reports. As he sat in the study, focused on the laptop screen, a slender, fair hand, adorned with a jade bangle, suddenly appeared at the edge of his vision, waving slightly. Leo looked up, momentarily dazed. Then, realization dawned, and he couldn't help but laugh. Nice hand! The figure of a girl flashed out from behind the doorframe. Claire looked at him, a slight frown of dissatisfaction on her face. I wasn't asking for compliments on my hand. She raised her elegant wrist again, showing off the jade bangle. Is the bangle pretty or not? This thing was now the absolute center of Bertha Sue's universe. Its place in her heart far surpassed the thread of destiny, Blackie the Leo hammer, and even the original Leo hammer himself. It was, without a doubt, her #1 treasure. So, hearing the question, Leo answered without a moment's hesitation, his tone firm and decisive. It's beautiful. He didn't forget to add, with righteous conviction. And it looks perfect on you. His words went straight to her heart. A smile bloomed on Claire's face. She glided over, leaned across the desk, and planted a quick kiss on his lips as a reward. Good boy. Then, her curiosity piqued. She leaned in to look at his screen. What's this? Leo's arm naturally found its way around her slim waist. He smiled and explained, work stuff. The core secret of your boyfriend's new startup. Claire raised an eyebrow. Then it clicked. Is this that browser game you were talking about? If you're using someone's novel, don't you have to buy the rights? And if you're making a game, you'll need to hire a team. That costs money, right? Leo just laughed. Don't worry, I've got it handled. You just wait to be a rich little wifey. She arched an eyebrow. I'm already a rich little wifey. Leo, reasonable. He was speechless. Goddamn, rich people just don't play by the rules. For now, he decided against explaining the $30,000 he'd made from selling the Happiness domain or the true potential of the Battle Through the Heavens game. After all, a mere 30 grand was nothing to the heiress of the Sterling family. Even 10 times that amount would be pocket change. He figured it was better to wait until the game was a massive success, or until Happiness blew up nationwide. Then he could drop all the surprises on her at once. They flirted in the study for a little while longer, going over their notes, having a few daily intimacy sessions, and researching the best methods for planting strawberries. Finally, satisfied, Claire went back upstairs, eager for some quality one-on-one time with the ancestral jade bangle that was now hers. Before she left, she glanced back at her boyfriend and raised an eyebrow. Finish up and come up soon, she said, her tone deceptively casual. I'll be waiting. As she spoke, she let her tongue dart out to trace her lips, a gesture so subtle, yet so potent it nearly gave him a nosebleed. His entire body went on high alert. Okay, I'll be right there. Walking into the arms of a beautiful woman are the tomb of a hero. 1 second, Leo was filled with ambition and drive, planning to knock out the entire game design outline for Battle Through the Heavens in one night. The next second, he heard his girlfriend's soft yet sultry, "I'll be waiting," and saw that fleeting, devastatingly alluring lick of her lips. The only thing he wanted to do was abandon his work and storm the castle upstairs. Work? What was work? Could it possibly be as fun as his girlfriend? However, just as Leo was about to close his laptop and march triumphantly upstairs to explore the more serious mysteries of the human body, the AIM icon in the bottom right corner of his screen started blinking with a notification. At a time like this, no one could possibly distract him from his mission. But as he moved the mouse to close the program, his eyes accidentally glanced at the message preview. His hand froze. Most people couldn't shake his resolve, but this message was the one exception. Your buddy request has been accepted. Tragic Potato is now on your buddy list. He was instantly wide awake. Leo stopped his ascent, sat back down, and quickly clicked on the profile of the user who had just accepted his request. Sure enough, the profile information matched. It was him, the future king of web novels. The man who would one day write for 10 minutes, slack off for half an hour, and play games for another half an hour. But to the Leo of right now, this man was his next target, his golden goose. He opened the chat window and quickly typed out a message. Leo Wallace, 2008. Hey, huge fan of your work. Leo Wallace, 2008. I'm also the person who bought the browser game IP rights for your novel, Battle Through the Heavens. His phrasing was polite and respectful, and he made sure to throw in a compliment. What no one could see were the golden dollar signs that had filled the handsome young man's eyes. Potato, the future top-tier IP machine, a walking ATM. If he could build a good relationship with this guy, making a fortune would be a piece of cake. Forget just Battle Through the Heavens. Down the line, he could get the rights to Martial Universe, Dragon Prince Yuan, the Great Ruler. He wouldn't even have to develop them all himself. He could just act as a middleman and resell the rights for a massive profit. It was a guaranteed windfall. As the thought crossed his mind, his fingers danced across the keyboard again, sending a barrage of praise to Potato. He threw out phrases like the undisputed king of web novels in my heart, and I practically grew up reading your stories. He laid it on so thick he nearly sent the guy on the other end into a state of shock. The poor Potato was so dazed he didn't know which way was up. Did he really have such a dedicated, longtime fan already? His attitude toward Leo immediately warmed. Tragic Potato. Hello, Tragic Potato. I just heard about that the rights for the game were bought by you. Tragic Potato. To be honest, my novel has only just gotten started. It hasn't really achieved much yet. For you to have so much faith in it is really flattering. Look at that. Before he became a legend, Potato was so humble, so green and innocent. Leo marveled internally, but his hands didn't stop. He unleashed another wave of compliments, explaining that the game was only in the planning stages and that he would need to consult the original author on many details. Potato, on the other end of the chat, was practically floating on a cloud of praise. He readily agreed, promising to promote the game in his chapters and fan groups once it launched. This was to be expected. Although the rights had been sold to Scrollverse, the platform's licensing department would still distribute a percentage of the game's revenue back to the original author. The better the game did, the more the author would benefit. It was only on the topic of game content planning that Potato hesitated. Tragic Potato. But speaking of that, Tragic Potato, my novel has really only just begun. It's less than 600,000 words. Tragic Potato. The wider world building and the main quest lines haven't really been developed or properly planned out yet. Tragic Potato. Is there really enough material right now to make a browser game? Tragic Potato. You want me to help give you ideas? Tragic Potato. I might not have even figured out the rest of the plot myself yet. It was a perfectly valid concern. But for Leo, it wasn't a problem at all. Seeing Potato's innocent question, Leo simply smiled at his screen and typed back with serene confidence. Leo Wallace, 2008. No problem. Leo Wallace, 2008. As it happens, I have a few small, undeveloped ideas of my own. Leo Wallace, 2008. Maybe we could discuss them. What followed was a familiar scene. For the next 20 minutes, acting purely as a humble reader, Leo politely and respectfully offered the original author a series of thoughts and suggestions for the plot. He went on, uninterrupted, for 20 straight minutes. At the end, he didn't forget to add a humble, polite addendum. Leo Wallace, 2008. Of course, these are just a few of my own undeveloped little suggestions. Leo Wallace, 2008. I'd love to hear your feedback. After that message was sent, the chat on the other end went silent for 3 full minutes. Far away, in his home in Sichuan province, a certain Potato was completely stunned. He stared at the massive blocks of text in the chat window, full of plot points, story arcs, and even character designs that were practically ready to use. The original author of Battle Through the Heavens couldn't believe his eyes. Dude, are you the author, or am I the author? Who's the fan here? If you call these undeveloped little suggestions, then what the hell is the stuff I'm writing right now? As the original author and future king of web novels, he could see the sheer quality of these so-called suggestions at a glance. They weren't just detailed and brilliant. What was even more insane was that they aligned perfectly with the future plot he had vaguely conceived in his own mind. They even provided elegant solutions to problems he hadn't figured out yet. If only Potato knew David Chung, the founder of Happy Nest. If they ever compared notes, they would find their experiences were identical. The more he read, the more his heart pounded. It was utterly unbelievable. Finally, Potato couldn't hold back anymore and cautiously typed out a message. Tragic Potato, have you ever written a novel before? Tragic Potato, maybe you should forget about making games, Tragic Potato, and try being an author or an editor instead. Author's note, I'll try for another chapter tonight. Please send Power Stones and gifts. The Power of Black Stockings Leo just laughed and politely declined Potato's sincere suggestion. What kind of person with a functioning brain would choose to become a web novel author? You spend your days slaving away, typing until your fingers bleed for pennies. And the one time you want to write something a little wild, the platform censors you. Seeing Leo's refusal, Potato on the other end of the chat felt a sense of regret. After their discussion, he felt like he'd found a kindred spirit, a true confidant. Tragic Potato, Brother Lin, you're a genius. Tragic Potato, I haven't even fully plotted out the rest of my novel. Tragic Potato, but the ideas you came up with are exactly the same as mine. Tragic Potato, it's like we share a brain. He got so carried away that he even cracked a joke. Tragic Potato, if I didn't have a rule against writing rebirth stories. Tragic Potato, I'd almost think you were reborn from the future and had already finished reading my novel. Ha ha ha. Staring at that line of text and the laughing emoticon, Leo didn't even blink. He typed back calmly. Leo Wallace, 2008. You got me. The first rule of hiding a secret. Let them eliminate the correct answer themselves. Jokes aside, their discussion about the game's outline was incredibly productive. As the original author, Potato provided Leo with numerous ideas and suggestions, filling in many details he had overlooked. The more they talked, the more enthusiastic they became. By the end, both were reluctant to stop, agreeing to continue their discussion another time. Then, Leo casually typed out one last message. Leo Wallace, 2008, when our Battle Through the Heavens game launches. Leo Wallace, 2008, I'll privately give you an extra 2% of the profit share. Leo Wallace, 2008, just a small token of my appreciation. Emotional connections were important, but bonds forged with mutual interest were unbreakable. The author on the other end was stunned by Leo's generosity. When he recovered, he was so moved he practically wanted to beat his chest and swear an oath. Tragic Potato, Brother Lin, you're a true friend. Tragic Potato, I promise I'll give this game my all. Tragic Potato, when it launches, I won't just promote it in my chapters and fan groups. Tragic Potato, I'll get my other author friends in the community to help promote it too. Leo smiled faintly. That was exactly the result he wanted. Finally, the two bid a reluctant farewell online. Closing the chat window, Leo's focus returned, but his conversation with Potato had reignited his passion for the project. He opened the Word document and, with renewed vigor, began typing furiously, further refining the game's design outline. Without realizing it, he had completely forgotten about his other, more pressing business. So much so that when his girlfriend came downstairs from the master bedroom, wearing only her pajamas and shorts, and nonchalantly passed by the study door, revealing a pair of long, pale, perfectly shaped legs, he didn't even look up. He remained hunched over his laptop, working intently. Claire, ? The first seduction attempt by Bertha Sue had ended in miserable failure. Undeterred, the girl leaned against the doorframe, cleared her throat, and offered a gentle reminder with a smile. Not taking a break yet. The man still didn't look up, completely absorbed in his typing. You go ahead to bed, he replied simply. I'll be up in a bit. A man dedicated to his work. His focus was unbreakable. The determined campus queen continued to nonchalantly walk past the study over the next 10 minutes, her slippers intentionally making soft noises on the floor. She even tugged the collar of her pajama top down slightly, revealing a hint of a smooth, snowy white shoulder. The sultry shoulder edition of Bertha Sue was now online. Yet, she still couldn't capture the attention of the man engrossed in his work. The sultry shoulder edition of Bertha Sue went offline in defeat. Watching her boyfriend working so intently at the desk, the girl's eyes narrowed. The great Claire Sterling never admitted defeat. Inside the study, as Leo continued to focus on the game design document, the sharp, crisp sound of heels clicking on the floor came from outside. Click, clack, click, clack. The sound grew closer. Leo looked up with an exasperated smile. I told you to go to bed first. I'll be right back. His words died in his throat. As he looked up, his eyes fell upon a vision. His girlfriend had, at some point, changed into a pair of black high heels. Her long, rounded legs were now encased in black stockings, creating a breathtaking, soul-stealing spectacle. Leo, his eyes went wide. His fingers froze on the keyboard. He stared dumbly at his girlfriend in the doorway, his mind a complete blank. His unbreakable focus shattered into dust. Not a single speck remained. But Claire, standing in the doorway, maintained a look of cool nonchalance. She raised an eyebrow at her boyfriend. It's nothing. I'm just putting on some stockings before I go to bed. You keep working. After that breezy statement, she turned with an elegant grace, her long, stocking-clad legs carrying her away with a gentle sway. Leo was left sitting at his desk, stunned. Then, he snapped back to reality. With a swoosh, he shot up from his chair and bolted out the door. Wait, I suddenly feel really tired. Work? What work? Even if the sky was falling, it wasn't as important as going to bed. At the foot of the stairs, the girl ascended with light, graceful steps, a hint of pride in her posture. A certain handsome young man scrambled after her. Wait for me. I'm coming, I'm coming. In its cage, the round-headed parrot watched in awe. A honey trap. A honey trap. Brilliant. Brilliant. The commotion even drew the retired Special Forces operative out from the guest room, where he had been immersed in his creative writing. The parrot turned its head, saw him, and flapped its wings in an enthusiastic invitation. Big brother, come look at the legs. Come look at the legs. Good things should be shared with everyone. The moral code of a loyal parrot. Mr. Joe's gaze instinctively shifted toward the stairs. What he saw made his pupils violently contract. He immediately grabbed the birdcage, spun around, and rushed back into his room. Look at my ass. You're not allowed to look. Miss seducing him with stockings? What kind of international joke was this? But how the hell was he supposed to write this intelligence report? Author's note, 3rd chapter. Remember to send power stones and gifts. Transaction complete, he scrambled upstairs, heart pounding and blood boiling. When he burst into the bedroom, Leo saw his girlfriend already sitting on the edge of the bed. Her long legs, clad in black stockings and high heels, were crossed at an angle, exuding a lazy sort of allure that didn't quite match the slightly dazed expression on her face. But at that moment, who cared about such details? He was about to dive onto the bed. I'm here. Let's sleep. The next second, however, she raised one long, slender leg, blocking him mid-air. Leo, Claire said, looking up at him, her expression suddenly serious. You were working. I shouldn't have disturbed you. Her tone was filled with self-reproach. Leo froze, then quickly snapped out of it, vehemently denying her claim. Not at all. Don't be silly. I was just about to take a break anyway. He tried again to lunge for the bed. Come on. No time to waste. Let's get to sleep. You can even leave the heels on. But once again, her slender, stocking-clad leg held him back. Stop messing around, she said, her voice firm. I'm being serious. She looked at him, her face full of remorse. I'm being too clingy. As a girlfriend, I should be completely supportive when my boyfriend wants to work on his startup. Claire knew herself well. In her past life, she had hated being disturbed while working. This was her first time in a relationship, and she couldn't help but be influenced by the emotions of a young girl, becoming subconsciously clingy. It wasn't wrong, but a couple should make each other better, more excellent. She certainly had the capital to let her boyfriend live off her for a lifetime, but she couldn't, in the name of love, turn the person she loved into someone who could only live off her. Leo was both amused and exasperated. Why was Bertha Sue having this crisis of conscience now? For him, it didn't matter what she did. He would love her regardless. But honestly, the work on the browser game wasn't that urgent. The black stockings and high heels, on the other hand, were a matter of extreme urgency. Still, her self-criticism wasn't just for show. It came from a genuine place of consideration for him. A warmth spread through Leo's heart. He smiled. Don't worry. Your boyfriend isn't going to neglect his work for a pretty face. I know how to manage my time. Working on my startup and spending time with my girlfriend. I could do both. I've got both hands on the wheel. Claire looked slightly relieved and nodded. Okay, good. She paused, then looked up at him again. But when certain people say things like that, could their hands be a little less active? Unbeknownst to him, Leo's hand had found its way to her raised, stocking and heel-clad leg. Literally both hands on the wheel. Oh, I was just trying to emphasize my point, he said, pulling his hand away without a hint of shame. Nothing else. Then, he cleverly changed the subject. So what's the verdict now? Claire raised an eyebrow. You go back to the study and finish the work I interrupted. She paused again, crossing one leg elegantly over the other knee. The black stiletto heel dangled from her toes, swinging gently. Her gaze landed on his face, a faint, seductive curve playing on her lips. I won't sleep. I'll be right here, waiting for you to finish. Then, we'll sleep together. That combination of action and words sent the soul-stealing index skyrocketing to its absolute peak. Leo felt another nosebleed coming on. Without a second thought, he agreed decisively. Deal. Wait for me. The moment the words left his mouth, he spun around and shot out of the room, racing back downstairs. He moved so fast it startled Claire. She couldn't help but laugh as she called out after him. Slow down. There's no rush. There was a rush. Back in the study, Leo's fighting spirit was at an all-time high. He flipped open the laptop and unleashed a torrent of inspiration onto the keyboard. It was as if all his creative channels had been opened. It was even more effective than his half-hour chat with the author of Battle Through the Heavens. In 40 minutes, he had completed almost the entire outline for the game. His efficiency was staggering enough to make any corporate drone weep with envy. This was the power of love? No, this was the power of black stockings. The only strange thing was, when he reviewed the document afterward, he noticed a small anomaly. Probably influenced by Bertha Sue's temptation from upstairs, the proposal he had just written seemed to have a slightly colorful tinge to it. In the item database he'd listed, there were now a few strange items with the suffix stockings. Leo stroked his chin and made a decision. No problem. This works. It could just be cosmetic skins for the female characters. It's a browser game, after all. A few fun little elements would only attract more male players. Work handled, he slammed the laptop shut and shot out of the study. With agile movements, he bounded up the stairs and slipped back in the master bedroom. He pushed the door open, his blood still pumping, only to find his girlfriend fast asleep on the bed. She must have gotten too tired while waiting. She had fallen asleep mid-slump. One of her high heels kicked off unconsciously, the other still on her foot, dangling from her toes. Leo paused, then broke into a silent smile. He tiptoed over, gently slipped the remaining heel off her foot, arranged her long legs properly, and pulled the covers over her. Tonight's wild, passionate plans were off the table. But he didn't feel a shred of disappointment. Just watching this peaceful scene was enough. And besides, with a calm expression, he lifted a corner of the blanket by her legs. With the righteous air of a concerned partner, he placed his hand on her smooth, stocking-clad calf, just helping to adjust her position, ensuring she had a proper, healthy sleeping posture. He adjusted it a little more, and a little more again. He couldn't do anything else, but he could at least get a handful. So smooth. A change of guard the next morning. At the breakfast table, Leo was the picture of vigor and radiance. He was constantly putting food on Claire's plate. Here, try this. And have some of this, too. It made Claire look at him with a slight puzzlement. Then, as if realizing something, a faint blush rose on her cheeks. She didn't look angry, just gave a soft humph. You little pervert. Across from them, one man and one bird were completely lost. Mr. Joe, ? Reasonable, ? Perched on his big brother's shoulder, the round-headed parrot-eyed Leo and Claire suspiciously, feeling like something was off. Leo, however, maintained an air of perfect innocence. Nothing happened. We went to bed last night and just slept. I didn't touch anything. We didn't do anything. Just very proper, innocent sleeping. Reasonable rolled its eyes. My ass. My ass. My ass. The next second, a hand swatted it off the shoulder. Mr. Joe nodded with a calm, composed expression. Reasonable. Even if it wasn't reasonable, it had to be. If anything new happened, his creative well would run dry. Just the image of Miss Sterling coming downstairs in black stockings and high heels last night had burned out all his brain cells until he finally squeezed out an explanation. Misadvised classmate not to stay up late. That single line was the absolute pinnacle of his literary prowess. It could not be surpassed. After breakfast, Leo and Claire got ready for school. Mr. Joe also had to leave for the city to continue his work by his boss's side and to deliver his latest creative writing from Mr. Sterling's review. Normally, that left Reasonable the parrot at home alone, in need of care. Mr. Zhou had considered offering to take the bird with him. As he said this, he eyed the parrot with ill intent, causing its feathers to puff up in alarm. Save me, save me, save me. If it really left with its newly adopted big brother, it had a feeling it wouldn't be coming back. The parrot's sense of danger was sharp. Luckily, Leo and Claire had other plans. Leo smiled at Mr. Zhou. It's fine, no trouble. Someone can come over to help look after him. Mr. Zhou was taken aback. Someone to help? Who? Speak of the devil. The next moment, the gate to the LNS house was pushed open, and a figure strode in with a swagger. Hey, you two lovebirds having breakfast? The man called out, raising a hand in a familiar greeting. Then his eyes fell on the retired Special Forces operative sitting at the table. He paused. Without missing a beat, he corrected himself. Oh, classmates having a meal together. Such tact, such flexibility could only belong to one person. The esteemed owner of the Gilded Phoenix chain of businesses. A man of immense value. Mr. Qian. Leo and Claire greeted Mr. Qian with a smile, then turned to explain to Mr. Zhou. Mr. Qian has a lot of free time. We asked him to help look after Reasonable when he comes by to check on the house. We trust him to do a good job. Claire was the one who said the last part. As she spoke, she even offered Mr. Qian a rare, faint smile. Mr. Zhou, why did he suddenly feel like he'd been dethroned? He was here first. He was the trusted confidant of both Sterlings. Of course, this rivalry was just a joke. More importantly, the retired operative did not trust this so-called Mr. Qian. His eyes swept coldly over him. Can you even take care of this bird? Mr. Zhou asked in a low voice. Mr. Qian glanced at him and scoffed. Piece of cake. I used to own an exotic bird shop. He then turned to Leo and Claire, adding confidently, next time you want to buy a bird, just go to the Gilded Phoenix Aviary by the west gate of campus. Couples get a 40% discount. The word slipped out. He glanced at Mr. Zhou. Classmates get a 50% discount. Friendship bird package. Mr. Zhou felt his fists clenching. But Mr. Qian wasn't bluffing. He turned to tease Reasonable in its cage, and the two hit it off immediately. Come on, call me Big Brother. The parrot, who had taken an initial liking to the newcomer, hesitated. It glanced cautiously at Mr. Zhou. It had already pledged allegiance to one Big Brother. So, Reasonable shook its head with solemn righteousness. Inappropriate. Inappropriate. A self-satisfied look appeared on Mr. Zhou's face, but Mr. Qian just glanced at Mr. Zhou, seeming to understand instantly. He leaned closer to the cage and lowered his voice. I've got a collection of some good films. Animal Planet. The grand showcase of female parrots. Before he could finish, the parrot's little eyes lit up. The bird hopped up and down excitedly, then bowed its head to Mr. Qian. If you will have me, my lord, I wish to pledge myself to you as my godfather. This was a parrot that had watched too many historical epics. Leo and Claire watched, thoroughly entertained. The retired Special Forces operative's face darkened, his fists clenching even tighter. After happily teasing the bird for a while, Mr. Qian turned to the young couple and thumped his chest. Leave him to me. I'll teach him to sing at your wedding. I mean, at your classmate's ceremony. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Well, thank you for your trouble, Mr. Qian. Claire, however, was completely satisfied. Look at that. Someone get Kevin and Marco over here to take notes. Only the retired soldier's eyes were now glinting with a cold light. His gaze toward Mr. Qian was filled with murderous intent. This man must be eliminated. He must be eliminated. That afternoon, Leo and Claire went to their respective classes. When classes let out for lunch, the roommates from room 205 and room 520, who rarely had free time together, met up at a small restaurant in the dining hall. Over lunch, the girls from 205 mentioned that their major also had classes at the new campus now. Marco's interest was immediately piqued, and he began to ramble on about the beautiful girls in the political science and arts departments over there. The poli-sci girls in their uniforms. Unbelievable. And the new-it girl of the arts department, Isabella Zhao. A solid 9 out of 10. We missed her last time. We have to go see her tomorrow. An unspoken challenge, the topic of beautiful women, always got the guys fired up. The moment Marco started, Leon and Dylan were nodding vigorously in agreement. Dylan scribbled furiously in his notebook and held it up. Gorgeous. Then he cautiously glanced at Claire sitting diagonally across from him, quickly added another line, and held it up again. A little less pretty than Bertha? After Molly's birthday party, during a casual walk, Bertha Sue's sudden, unexpected tears had scared the life out of poor Dylan. He'd been so shocked he almost started speaking again. He had learned his lesson. The girls, however, rolled their eyes in annoyance. You guys, Quinn huffed, all you ever talk about are girls and beautiful women. You go to the new campus for class, not to hunt for girls. She turned to Molly and Claire. Molly, Claire, you two better be careful. Keep a tight leash on your men. Molly nodded in solemn agreement, glanced at Leon, and shook a small fist menacingly. If you look at other girls, I'll punch you. It didn't sound very threatening, but when you remember the image of this cute girl effortlessly carrying 4 heavy suitcases upstairs at the beginning of the semester, that little fist seemed capable of killing a guy like Dylan 10 times over. Leon immediately put on a simple, honest smile. I won't. I promise I won't look. He slid a date cake across the table. Molly accepted it, her eyes crinkling with a smile as she happily nibbled on it, successfully placated. Jade and Quinn sighed. That girl was a lost cause, easily won over with a few pastries. Claire, however, was much more composed. I don't mind. He can look all he wants. She paused, glanced at her boyfriend, and a playful smile touched her lips. He can even touch. Her words shocked the other 3 girls in room 205. What? Claire, you're being way too lenient. You can't let him get away with that. The 3 guys from room 520, on the other hand, were filled with awe. Marco shot Claire a thumbs up. As expected of Bertha. That generosity. That open-mindedness. Leo, you're a lucky man to have a girlfriend like her. Claire just smiled faintly at the praise. It's nothing. Lucky or not was debatable. The one doing the touching would definitely be the one suffering. The thought of a good shoulder throw made a smile creep on her lips. She glanced at her boyfriend. Wouldn't you agree? Leo's face was a mask of grim acceptance. Definitely. The 4 guys from the advertising program in room 520 had their new campus classes on Friday. The girls from 205, however, had an international finance class there this afternoon. After lunch, the girls went back to their dorm to get ready for the shuttle bus. While they were getting dressed and doing their makeup, they chatted. Molly, who finished first, sat on a chair and leaned over the back, asking curiously, do you guys think that guy's really like that whole uniform and black stockings thing? I don't think it's that special. Molly's personal style was cute and girly. She rarely even wore makeup, relying on her natural beauty. She had almost never touched a pair of stockings or high heels in her life. Quinn scoffed. Is that even question? Every guy is a perv. They all love that stuff, no exceptions. Jade pushed her glasses up her nose and offered a calm, rational analysis. Men are visual creatures. High heels elongate the curve of a woman's legs and satisfy a strange desire for conquest. As for stockings, it varies. It's not necessarily the stockings they like, but the act of tearing them off. Quinn, Molly. So professional. Way too professional. Claire, who was hanging her jacket on a rack, listened to Jade's meticulous breakdown. She thought for a moment, recalling her boyfriend's strangely intense fascination with certain outfits she wore. She nodded in agreement. She's right. Molly looked down at her own well-proportioned but shorter legs with a hint of regret. Then I'm out. My legs are too short. It wouldn't look good. She turned to Quinn with envy. Quinn is so lucky. She's tall with long legs like a model. She could go out in stockings and heels and cause a massacre. It was true. In room 205, Quinn was the undisputed runner-up for looks and figure. At 5'9", she had the body of a model. During the School of Business Welcome Gala, she had worn stockings and heels as part of the student etiquette committee and led the procession. Her stunning legs had nearly caused a mass nosebleed among the male students. Hearing her roommate's praise, Quinn just waved it off. I'm just okay. If we're really talking about who's suited for it. Claire is the one who was born to wear stockings and heels. The topic shifted to Claire. Quinn looked at her roommate with envy. Claire, you're a few inches shorter than me, but I've secretly compared. Your legs are just as long as mine, and your proportions are even better. Plus, your legs are perfectly shaped, long, rounded, slender, and even. If I were a guy, I want to grab them and play with them. Claire laughed. What do you mean? Play with them? Stop being ridiculous. It's not as exaggerated as you make it sound. But Jade and Molly were already staring at Claire's legs, their eyes lighting up. She's right. Claire looks amazing even in casual clothes. She's already the campus queen. If she were stockings and heels. And that uniform thing Marco and the guys were talking about, wouldn't she drive every guy at this university absolutely insane? Quinn got excited too. Yes. Claire, you should try it. The guys from 520 are always going on about how good the girls from the poli-sci and arts departments look in their uniforms. We have uniforms in the finance program too. You should wear it to the new campus and take a walk around. Show those other departments what's what. Let the guys see the difference between fast food and a gourmet meal. Her 3 roommates egged her on excitedly. Claire was about to laugh and refuse, but then a thought occurred to her. She paused for a moment, and then she changed her mind. She nodded. All right, I'll wear it once for fun. It was a simple, casual sentence, but it was destined to unleash a cataclysmic storm across the entire university that very afternoon. The storm gathers the International Finance class at the new campus started at 2:40 p.m. The shuttle bus from the old campus was scheduled to depart at 1:40. At 1:20 p.m., in dorm room 205, the bathroom door opened. Following her roommate's enthusiastic suggestions, Claire stepped out in a brand new outfit. Quinn, Molly, and Jade were waiting for her. Even though they had prepared themselves, even though they had spent an entire semester living with the undisputed campus queen and had developed some immunity, the sight that greeted them was so stunning it left them momentarily speechless. Claire, looking perfectly composed, did a slow turn for her roommates. Is it okay? She asked, looking for their approval. Her question nearly broke their brains. Molly's eyes were wide. Okay, it's more than okay. It's unstoppable. Quinn sucked in a sharp breath, her eyes shining. Claire, in that outfit, the entire university is going to lose its mind today. Jade took a deep breath to compose herself, adjusting her glasses. She tried to give a calm, collected assessment. This is cheating. Wearing that is like the referee personally joining the game. No one stands a chance. 1:25 p.m. Outside women's dorm building 37. Students were coming and going, chatting with friends near the entrance. When the sound of high heels echoed from the stairwell, many of them instinctively looked up. The first thing they saw were the familiar faces from room 205, all dressed in sharp, matching outfits. They were impressed, and then it dawned on them. They must be from the finance program. They had an international finance etiquette class this semester that required formal wear. The girls of dorm 37 looked on with a mix of appreciation and envy. Room 205 really lived up to its reputation as the super dorm of beauties. But just as that thought crossed their minds, they saw the 3 girls from 205 stop at the bottom of the stairs and turn to look up, as if waiting for someone. The other students paused, confused. 3 of them. Weren't they missing one? Then, the sound of elegant, steady high heels echoed from the stairs once more. A stunning, slender figure descended gracefully, coming into view. The moment they saw the 4th member of room 205, every single girl in front of dorm 37 froze, their minds blown by the sheer, overwhelming beauty and elegance of the sight before them. Even after the 4 girls from 205 had walked away, the others remained rooted to the spot, their minds buzzing. They stared after the retreating figures, and it took a long moment for them to recover. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Do we see that right? The campus queen, Claire Sterling. Today, she went all out. One girl, replaying the fleeting, breathtaking image in her mind, murmured in a daze, she's already a perfect 10 in casual clothes. Wearing that outfit out in public. Aren't the guys at this university going to go completely feral? Her words made the others pause. They looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Then, they all rushed out of the dorm. This was a spectacle they had to witness. 1:35 p.m. The athletic fields next to the campus parking lot. At this time of day, many students were out enjoying the sun, jogging, or playing basketball and badminton. The air was filled with the shouts and clamor of competition. No one was paying much attention to the parking lot, where students from the finance program were boarding the shuttle bus. A few guys glanced over, saw the students in business suits, and thought nothing of it. Finance majors, dressed to the nines. They might have spared an extra glance for the girls, appreciating the view before returning to their games. But then, another set of high heels clicked on the pavement. A few more beautiful figures arrived, once again drawing the eyes of the men on the fields. This time, when their gazes swept past Molly, Jade, and Quinn, they paused, their eyes lighting up with surprise. Wow, beauties, serious beauties. But in the next second, as a final figure stepped gracefully into the parking lot, coming into everyone's view, the very air seemed to freeze. The entire area fell silent. The track athletes stopped mid-stride. The soccer players, in the middle of a heated dribble, froze, not even noticing when the ball was stolen from them. On the basketball court, a player calling for a pass stood motionless as the ball hit him squarely in the chest and dropped to the ground. He just stared, dumbfounded, at the figure in the parking lot. His teammate, who had thrown the pass, ran over annoyed. "What are you staring at?" he yelled. But then he followed his teammate's gaze, saw the same stunning figure, and froze too. It was as if every man on the field had been turned to stone, their souls stolen by the sight before them. At that moment, bathed in the bright afternoon sun, stood Claire Sterling. A tailored white blouse and a black blazer paired with a black pencil skirt. Her long, slender legs, encased in black stockings, were outlined in a breathtakingly perfect curve. On her feet were a pair of black stilettos that further elongated her legs, lending her an air of even greater elegance and nobility. Her dark, glossy hair was styled to fall casually over her shoulders. Her cool, ethereal beauty, enhanced by simple, light makeup, radiated a mature, confident aura that was so stunning it was almost hard to look at directly. She was truly, dazzlingly magnificent, an absolute vision of grace. The goddess descends from the first day of the semester. Claire Sterling had become a legend among the freshmen. She usually didn't bother with much makeup or styling. Her most common look was a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair in a ponytail under a pink baseball cap. Yet any student who had seen her in person was left utterly stunned, becoming an instant, die-hard fan. The it girls from other departments were a matter of subjective taste. The humanities girl who might be an 8, the P.E. girl in 8. 3, the poli-sci girl in 8. 2, there were always debates. But when it came to Claire Sterling, for anyone who had seen her, there was no debate, no hesitation. The answer was always the same, 10 out of 10. Perfect score. The moment you saw her, any doubt was erased. High-end ingredients often require the simplest preparation. One experienced student had profoundly declared, "A truly top-tier beauty doesn't need any makeup or fancy clothes. The moment she appears, she conquers everyone." This sentiment was widely shared, but with it came a tinge of regret. If an unadorned Claire was already that breathtaking, what would she look like if she actually dressed up? A lucky few had witnessed her in an ice blue evening gown at the humanities department's formal and had been completely floored. They had raved about it on the student forums, only to be met with a barrage of angry comments. "Pics or IT didn't happen. You selfish bastard. You didn't take a single picture to share with the rest of US. Scum." That formal had been for select few. But this time, dressed in a sharp professional suit, Claire had walked with her roommates all the way from their dorm to the parking lot, crossing half the campus. And finally, countless students got to witness what a true goddess looked like when she descended to the mortal plane. No, more accurately, they witnessed her shedding the persona of a cool, pure campus queen and reactivating her past life main account, the ice queen of the business world, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, in all her stunning, powerful glory. Other university girls, whether from political science, arts, or finance, might look transformed in a business suit, but ultimately they were still students. The stockings, heels, and blazer couldn't hide their youthful uncertainty. The clothes wore them, not the other way around. But Claire was different. Her casual attire was just an adaptation to her reborn student life. The business suit, the pencil skirt, the elegant heels, this was her true element. This was the CEO's uniform. So, when she put on the outfit, the pure, cool campus queen persona faded away, replaced by the natural return of her cool, mature charm and commanding presence. Just by standing there, she dominated the entire scene. Even Quinn, Molly, and Jade, who had been prepared, were stunned by the reaction she caused. "This is insane, right?" Molly whispered, her eyes wide. "Holy crap," Quinn breathed, her mouth agape. "It's like a mass petrification spell." Jade adjusted her glasses. "Let's get on the bus. I think a riot is about to break out." Claire, however, was unbothered. She casually glanced at the stunned faces of the boys on the fields, seeing their expressions, and imagining her own boyfriend's reaction if he saw her like this. A small smile curved her lips, and that smile, seen by countless boys on the fields, was like a sledgehammer to the heart. One of them actually collapsed with a nosebleed. No one even noticed. They were all mesmerized by the goddess's captivating smile. "Holy shit, she smiled at me." Finally, urged on by her flustered roommates, Claire boarded the bus. At 1:40 p.m., the shuttle pulled out of the parking lot. It was only then that the spell seemed to break. After a moment of silence, the athletic fields erupted into a chaotic, thunderous roar. At 1:45 p.m., as the bus left the old campus and headed for the new one, the university's online forums were already exploding. Within minutes, hundreds of new threads had been created in a seismic wave of excitement, all centered on one topic. "Did you guys see it? The goddess. The goddess has unleashed her ultimate form. I am officially Claire Sterling's dog from now on." Ignoring that last embarrassing post, the threads about the scene in the parking lot had skyrocketed to the top of the forums. Even students who were initially clueless and critical. We're students, we should be focused on our studies. Why is everyone so obsessed with pretty girls? Is a campus queen better than a scholarship? We're silenced. They would click on a thread and see a blurry, long-distance photo of a girl's profile in the parking lot. The image was indistinct, but her cool, mature aura and the elegant lines of her professional attire were still visible. The academic elites who had been ready to criticize would pause. A second later, they would calmly save the image and quickly post a reply. You're a good person. May you have a safe life. Do you have a high-res version? By 2 p.m., the entire university's online community was in an uproar. The news had spread like wildfire. Everyone knew the shocking truth. The campus queen. Today, she wore black stockings, high heels, and a suit. At that same moment, in a classroom in the third classroom building on the old campus, the advertising students were buzzing with hushed, excited whispers. The professor at the front of the room was frowning, telling them to be quiet. Sitting in the back, Leo was wondering what was going on when he heard his roommates gasp. Holy shit! Marco, Leon, and Dylan, all holding their phones, turned to him in unison, their faces masks of stunned disbelief. Leo, Bertha just went nuclear. Nuclear launch detected. Leo took his roommate's phone. He saw the forum post and the blurry photo of Claire's stunning profile in her business suit. It was only then that he vaguely understood what was happening. Leo. While he was still processing, Dylan snatched the phone back, admiring the photo. Damn, that's Bertha for you. Those girls in the poli-sci and arts departments with their performance outfits and uniforms. Compared to this, they're just weeds. The next second, Marco grabbed the phone. Stop looking, he declared righteously. That's Bertha. It's not appropriate for us to be staring. We should report this post. This is something only Leo should see. His words dripped with loyalty, but Leon immediately called him out. You were the fastest one to save the picture just now. Marco nearly choked. I was just saving it for posterity, to use as a standard for my future girlfriend. He wasn't wrong. In the last half hour, that single low-res photo had been saved and forwarded by countless students. Most felt so unworthy in the presence of the cool, ethereal campus queen that they wouldn't dare approach her, let alone harbor any inappropriate thoughts. She was to be admired from afar. They saved the photo because the cool, stunning, and powerfully elegant aura she projected in that suit was simply too overwhelming. It exceeded every imaginable limit of what a goddess could be. They had to save it as a beautiful memory from their college days. Leo wasn't paying attention to any of that. He was still trying to wrap his head around it. What was going on? He couldn't wait for class to end. He pulled out his phone and sent a text to his girlfriend. It was a single character. Not long after the bell rang, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. He answered it. Claire's cool, pleasant voice came through, tinged with amusement. Class over. Leo said, still completely bewildered. What are you doing? What's with all this commotion? What commotion? Claire asked, feigning ignorance. Leo's face darkened. What do you mean, what commotion? A certain Bertha Sue takes a little stroll to the parking lot, and the entire university's online forums explode. Oh, that, she said, her tone still light and breezy. It's nothing. I just wore a suit for my finance etiquette class at the new campus. Everyone's overreacting. Overreacting? Leo's inner self wanted to flip a table. The hell they are. The campus queen gets all dressed up, blazer, pencil skirt, black stockings, the works, and takes a walk across campus. If that didn't cause a Category 5 hurricane, that would be the abnormality. Leo, more than anyone, knew the devastating power of Claire in that professional outfit. Setting aside the photos and videos he'd seen of her as a CEO in his past life, he'd witnessed it himself this life. During the summer after high school graduation, back in Northwood, he had orchestrated her appearance at Omnimart in a suit to win over Mr. Peterson for his mom's bakery. The presence she had commanded then was a perfect login of her past life persona. There was no awkwardness, no immaturity. It was a flawless embodiment of her power, so much so that he had briefly wondered which one of them was actually the one who had been reborn. To put it simply, Claire in jeans and a t-shirt was her default skin. Claire in a business suit was a limited edition, ultimate tier cosmetic. He had rarely seen it this lifetime, and now, for some reason, Bertha Sue had decided to just casually bust it out without a word. While his mind was wandering, Claire, on the other end of the line, seemed to sense his thoughts. A playful smile touched her lips. What's wrong? Is someone jealous? Leo snapped back to reality and immediately denied it. Jealous? Who's jealous? It's not me, don't spread rumors. Bertha, if you keep slandering me like this, I'll sue you for defamation. It's just a white shirt, a black blazer, red-soled heels, and black stockings. I'm not interested at all. Leon, who had just walked out of the classroom, overheard him and looked at him with astonishment. Leo, didn't you just glance at the photo? How do you remember the details so clearly? His comment was loud enough for Claire to hear over the phone, exposing Leo on the spot. In a shuttle bus, Claire couldn't hold back her laughter. She pretended to sound nonchalant. Is that so? Well, in that case, I was thinking of coming to find you after class so you could get a good look. But if someone's not interested, I'll just change out of it when I get back. Leo's tone shifted instantly. Well, on the other hand, since you're already wearing it, there's no rush to change. I can reluctantly help you appraise it later. The other 3 members of room 520 watched his rapid change of face with awe. Whoa, a shapeshifter. As expected of Leo. We need to learn this skill. Leo shot his roommates a glare and walked to a quieter corner, his curiosity getting the better of him. You had this class before, right? Why the sudden urge to wear the suit this time? There was a pause on the other end. Claire's voice remained breezy. It was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Weren't you and your roommates just talking about how the new campus is full of beauties from the poli-sci and arts departments? How they look so tempting in their uniforms. I thought since I had the chance, I'd come check it out. Go have a chat with my sisters over here. A little professional exchange. Her words were casual, but even through the phone, he could feel a faint, dangerous aura. An exchange? A chat? This was no friendly chat. This was the campus queen going in for a point-blank, all-out slaughter. Leo was stunned. A suspicion began to form in his mind. Wait a minute. Are you? He asked tentatively. Jealous? The line went silent for a beat. Then came her cool, calm voice. I'm not. I have nothing. Don't talk nonsense. Gotta go. Bye. The gauntlet is thrown in the internet landscape of 2008. Information still managed to travel at blinding speed. The moment the shuttle bus departed from the old campus, the university forums had already been flooded with discussion threads. By the time Claire was on the phone with her boyfriend, news centered on her had already blazed a trail from the old campus to the new one, alerting every department. The students at the new campus had heard the rumors about the freshman campus queen from the School of Business. The students from the political science and arts departments, in particular, faculties known for their abundance of beautiful women, had been dismissive. Having never seen her in person, they were skeptical of her prettiest freshman title. When they heard her class was coming to their campus this afternoon, they decided they would go see for themselves. They'd wait by the parking lot and personally witness the so-called campus queen's splendor. Or, to put another way, they wanted to knock her down a peg. At that same moment, on the bus, Claire coolly ended the call with her boyfriend and put her phone away. Her roommates glanced over at her. Someone's being a little hypocritical, Quinn said slyly. Says she's not jealous, but goes to all this trouble, puts on such a grand display, just for an etiquette class? Molly nodded vigorously. Exactly. She's totally jealous. The resident romance novel expert's eyes then began to sparkle. But it's so sweet when they're both jealous of each other. I'm totally shipping it. She pulled a date cake from her pocket, a gift from her own boyfriend, and chewed on it contentedly. It's fine. My love life is sweet, too. Physically sweet. Her friend's teasing was meant to get a flustered reaction out of her. But to their surprise, Claire simply listened and then nodded nonchalantly. I guess you could call it jealousy. Her simple admission stunned her roommates. Wait, what? She's just admitting it? She was so defensive with her boyfriend, but with her friends, she didn't even try to deny it? Then, they heard her give a light laugh. Besides, she said, I thought I'd come say hello to the students at the new campus. Help everyone get to know each other better. Just make sure no one like that Lily Lou accidentally gets any stupid ideas about my idiot. Her words hung in the air, and the back of the bus suddenly felt very quiet. Quinn, Jade, and Molly stared at their roommate's calm, smiling face and felt a sudden, inexplicable shiver run down their spines. Is the AC in this bus really cold? No, that feels like a killing intent. At 2:27 p.m., the shuttle bus entered the north gate of the new campus. By the parking lot, a crowd had already gathered. They were all students with no afternoon classes, drawn by the news of the campus queen's imminent arrival. Most were just curious onlookers, but a few had come with a specific purpose. The girls from the arts department, for instance. While they had earned their spots at the university through talent, they still possessed a greater appreciation for beauty and a more competitive spirit than the bookworms. It wasn't that they took the form rankings that seriously, but they still cared. The unspoken rivalry between departments was a long-standing tradition. For them, being at the university with the most beautiful women, and this year having a stunner like Isabella Zhao, only to have the campus queen title snatched by a freshman from the business school on the old campus. It just didn't sit right. They weren't here to start a fight. They just wanted to assemble and see for themselves what kind of capital this so-called campus queen possessed to claim the crown. As more and more people gathered, they all pretended to be casually strolling or enjoying the sun, but their eyes were all fixed on the road. The arts department girls chatted quietly amongst themselves. I heard that Claire Sterling already has a boyfriend. A cool campus queen who's already in a relationship? If she was that easy to get, she can't be that great. She can't be better than our Isabella. Many of them had already made up their minds, a sense of dismissive superiority settling in. It was at that moment that the shuttle bus slowly came into view, capturing everyone's attention. As countless eyes focused on the bus, it came to a stop. The door hissed open. One by one, the students from the International Finance program began to disembark. The crowd craned their necks, trying to get a better look. The arts department girls, in particular, stood with their arms crossed, critically assessing each person who stepped off. 1, 2, 3. The girls from the finance program were indeed attractive, with a few real beauties among them. But to the students of the new campus, accustomed to the bombshells from the arts and political science departments, it was nothing new. A murmur went through the crowd. Is that it? Where's the campus queen? Their average is about the same as our poli-sci girls. A little less impressive than the arts department. The arts department girls were already smiling. Is that all? If they weren't waiting for the main event, they would have already left. The next moment, Jade, Molly, and Quinn stepped off the bus. A new ripple of whispers and gasps went through the crowd. Some of the guys' eyes lit up. One was cool and intellectual. Another was cute and innocent. And the third was a knockout. A gorgeous face, a sultry aura, a model's figure, and a pair of killer legs, all wrapped in a professional business suit. She was the perfect corporate goddess.